Hello, everyone. How's it going? Glib is currently muted. Hello.
Hello.
I
How's it
thought I'd try
going?
out my new avatar sketch today. Thought it would look a bit
Okay.
better overblown.
It looks very it looks distinct from that, I would say. It reminds me of Crisis for some reason.
I don't know if that is high praise or what.
I don't know yet. I have to see the rest of the outfit.
Yeah. Well, it's still in the early concept art stages, so we'll have to just wait and see what the next iteration is. I just threw this together
No, I
with
like it.
the
I like it.
sketches I was given, as well as just painting it and giving it the background. So
Well,
today we are going to
yeah.
be doing Trope Talk, whatever Trope Talk is. Glib, would you like to explain the rules?
I don't really have the rules because people didn't really respond to it that much. But what I felt like we were gonna do is we were gonna try and put together stories based on the tropes that people were submitting. Maybe they could do that while we're actually talking. But I thought it'd be fun to like select three or five or some at a time and just try and put a story together out of it. That would be interesting. And then another thing I thought would be interesting is that just to start with, I was wondering if you had been watching anything this week, and this goes for the audience as well. Like, what recently have you been looking into? Like, what's been your recent interest in anything? Because like, I just
Well,
was looking at Full Metal Jacket, and I was just seeing all these different like editing choices and color and symbolism and framing and how everything was fit together. And I was thinking like, wow, Kubrick is really awesome. But there's been like a list of different things that I've been watching that have been influencing me lately, including Rome, the TV series from HBO. Have you seen that?
nope, I have not.
It's really good. And for 2004, it has some very it's very interesting to look at from a production perspective because there are choices that they made in it that clearly they had to make where Game of Thrones, a very similar show that does almost exactly the same kinds of things, didn't have they had all the set extension stuff. They had more technology, like 6 years of difference in digital technology to play with. So I thought that would be interesting to talk about, like what you've been looking at recently.
Recently, I've been going back and watching Stargate SG-1. I haven't had a chance to go back at Atlantis again, but I really enjoy Stargate. It's a very I do understand what you're talking about a few days ago or a few weeks ago when I mentioned Stargate. You said you didn't like that low budget aspect, but I think the series kind of shrugs off the low budget after the first few seasons. Because I actually like the visual effects, but again, as I mentioned a few streams ago, that also could just be because the resolution doesn't show as many of the imperfections in the CGI at the time. Like I think the
There's
replicators as a visual effect look fine, but it might just be the resolution.
I haven't seen. Did they make like it looks like it's shot on? It looks like it's shot on film, but like, is there only DVDs available of it? Because
There's only standard definition for the entirety of SG-1. However, there is
that's one of the things that bothers me. But go on, yeah.
uh, but then for uh, when it comes to Stargate Atlantis, there is a lot more. The entire season's in Blu-ray.
I wonder what it's. That's so funny. There's a Cheyenne Mountain Complex part. Well, it makes me wonder though, like what they shot it on, because it has like a cheapness to it in earlier seasons, and then it kind of gets a
Hmm.
little better. But like the thing that really interests me about the thing that interests me about television science fiction is that they have all these really large ideas, but they don't have any of the money to actually do it. And so then how do you manage that? How do you manage that? And I always thought it was interesting at how Star Trek got away with the corny aspect, like you because it's cheap and it looks like colorful and very
They've got spray
campy.
bottles as some kind of sci-fi technology.
Yeah, it's just like a bunch of. It's very cheap looking, but at the same time, it doesn't have to look that advanced. But then when you have something like Stargate, you know what I mean? They got like the P90s and stuff. Like I know you're a fan of the P90, and I'm a fan of the P90 in real life. But like the whole military angle, and they don't have the budget really to put together a lot of the military stuff. If you get what I'm saying,
Mm.
like they don't have the budget to present the military looking in a realistic fashion in a way. But so like the uniforms of Star Trek, because they're so removed from current day military stuff, it doesn't turn my brain on like that. But then when you have something like Stargate, it has to be a military type thing, or other science fiction shows that I've seen that they are trying to be serious and they can't create a uniform sincerity to it. Like The Expanse barely manages that. You know what I'm saying? Like they have to put together uniforms, and they have to put together a way that the spaceship systems work, how artificial gravity would look or whatever they would look like, and it barely accomplishes that. And there are some shows like Altered Carbon where I don't think that works. Like they kind of get halfway there, where things look kind of futuristic, and then they run out of budget, and you see a chain link fence, and you're like, why is there a chain link fence in the year 2200 whatever, or whatever it is? I don't even know. But I feel like the budget aspect has to somehow interact with the camp quality of it for it to be for me to accept it. When there's like when science fiction is trying to play itself off as serious and the budget doesn't have the ability to present that, it comes off as corny. That's been my experience.
All right. I do. Well, I can show a bit of the Stargate Atlantis here. I'll just keep an eye on the streaming just to make sure we're right.
Just far away. Hard activity. Quite a number of them.
Like right off the
We can
bat.
intercept
Like,
our missiles.
Well, they're using the set of Prometheus, which was from earlier seasons. They just kind of
Right.
reused it for the Daedalus.
right.
It'll be a good time.
But like just like the way that the thing is shot, it's cheap looking. Like the cameras they're using, it's frustrating.
I kind of like the look, but
You
that
like
might just
is
be
that
because
was that
I really
Jason Momoa?
like the show. It's probably just bias.
That looked like young Jason Momoa or something.
Oh, that's the guy that played
No, go
Tucker
back.
in.
Go
Oh,
to okay, right after this.
yeah, that's Jason Momoa.
Okay, I was like, oh,
He was
I
in
hope not,
Stargate
I hope it don't come off
Atlantis.
as racist. It's like, okay, it actually is Jason Momoa. I was like, I didn't recognize him without the muscles.
Sorry, super chat from Andrew
Yeah, you should
Clark.
put it in
Should
the
we put-
Discord, but you could also put
Yep.
him in the chat. I'm trying to, I'll try to monitor that. But
I have
definitely
made
the
a
Discord
Google
is
Docs
better.
for when we actually do start writing it.
And there's a thing under the Shiney and Glib show on Shiny's Discord that says submission suggestions.
Furry Joker also donated for $3 through StreamYard. Loving the new icon, Shiny. See, well, someone likes you, Glib. Not everyone's like you.
Now everyone's like me. What?
Oh, it's just because you didn't compliment my new icon.
Well, you showed me the previous build version of it, and we had a discussion about it. And
Yeah.
I should have complimented it, but I haven't figured. I want to see. We had this whole conversation.
I know. I get where you're coming from. I'm messing with you. It's
No,
fine.
I should like fully like I told Shiny with drawings, like I want to see what Sid Mead talked about, which is the thing that you're designing in an environment that you're designing it for, so that all the pieces fit together, as opposed to being like disparate pieces. So I want to see the full context, because I can't, if I just judge something by looking at it, I'm gonna be like biased, because I'm like building everything around in my head. I'm like, okay, so what is the helmet attached to, that kind of thing. That's what I do with my work. I'm like, how does everything fit together? And so I'm just excited. Then when I see it all come together, then you'll be like, oh, okay, I get it. I've also been up all night, so I'm tired.
They launch their weapons?
It's fine.
Negative, sir.
Open a secure channel.
Like, okay, glowing lights with grating is like the cheap way of getting around space stuff.
Oh, there's
you know what I mean?
explosions.
They launch their
Boom,
weapons?
boom, boom.
You need
Open a secure
fucking.
channel.
You need to have triangular, like. If you have a wall and it would end at a right angle, you need to make that a 45-degree angle. You know what I mean? That's what science fiction is. Science fiction is also arched walkway, like gates, and like Like the hallway has to have like bizarre dimensions for it to look like a spaceship for some reason. Every spaceship can't. There's only a few spaceships have like straight, like 90-degree angle walls to floor like angles. You know what I mean? Everything else has to be like an archway of some sort for it to look science fiction-y. Or like the old way in the 1930s and before that was everything had to be riveted because that's what ships and planes were. They were riveted. And then after that, it was like, oh, everything has to be like metal and or black and white. And then after Apple came out, everything was chrome and plastic, like Wall-E or the Steven Spielberg movies or like I, Robot, the robots. It was like all chrome and plastic stuff. And then like I feel like it's like a cyclical thing about whatever the industrial design is popular at the time is reflected onto the thing. This is the reason why I thought Star Wars was so cool, was because they went to England and they had an armory full of old World War II guns and all that kind of stuff. So they just dressed those up. Like, let's use all this old stuff that we have in stock. All of that kind of stuff mixed with the technology of the time that and the last 10 years that was outdated stuff that you would put together. So I think it would be really cool to do something similar like that with a retro sci-fi thing and just get like a bunch of like parallel cables and old technology and stuff and make a really like 1990s 2000 plasticky looking science fiction cheap thing, because you're just using all these old firewire cables no one uses anymore, and see if anybody notices that. Because at the end of the day, what you have to do to make something science fiction is you have to make it look like there's technology going on that doesn't exist in our time period. You have to somehow make that look like it's functionally relevant to whatever the story and world building is. So how do you produce that with very little money? That's the big question. How do you create the Back to the Future time machine? You know, you just throw together a bunch of stuff. You throw together a coffee maker or whatever. I mean, a coffee grinder. That's like you have to glue bits together and then say that's a thing, and then suddenly the audience wants that thing. Like to end my tangent, how many toys that people bought in the 80s and 90s were just things that were glued together, like proton packs for Ghostbusters, or Han Solo's dumbass C96 broom handle revolver. I mean, not revolver, but semi-automatic pistol. Like, so many things are just the thing and then slightly altered into garbage, and then that garbage becomes popular. And it's amazing how stuff like that works. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's amazing to me that somebody will pay $150 or something for a lightsaber, or whatever the price is for a realistic looking lightsaber, when it was a recycled flash bulb for a Graflex camera. And you're like, they got that for like $30 or something. They got that for cheap, you know what I mean? Or you pay a lot of money to get the wand from Harry Potter, and that's just supposed to be like a stick.
The stick.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's like it could literally be anything. It's funny how movies kind of degrade shit and then people pay for more for it. I don't know how that works.
Well, I suppose the collectibles you get would be better quality than what they originally used in the movie, because it's specifically built, it's nice and clean and properly made. It's not going to break easily. Well, hopefully it's not going to break easily. The lightsabers, which you can buy from, I think it's like the Black Series lightsabers, they're actually designed for fighting. Because, you know, the toy ones that are always going to break and whatnot. And some collectibles are not very durable.
It's definitely improved. Everything has improved over time. Like, people are making really excellent quality products. I don't want to detract from that. I'm just thinking that it's very funny to me that somebody makes something for a movie and it's a compromise. It's something that they logically did because of stocking or because of how, like, the visual imagery of a gun with a magazine. Why would you take a magazine and shorten it for Star Wars to shoot only a few shots? You know what I mean? Even if it's just blanks. Like, what was the reason they cut down the magazines? What was the reasoning that made them glue windshield wipers to that? And then that becomes the thing that if somebody wants to recreate the outfit or recreate the prop, then there's this gray market that isn't for people that are like retro camera fans. They're actually prop fans. So there's a whole purchasing items just for the prop value of them market, and I find that fascinating. And there's different levels of it, like getting something screen quality, like the 501st level stormtrooper outfits versus something that you would buy at Target. But nonetheless, it's based on the visual. It's based on seeing something in a piece of media and wanting that thing, or a representation or replication or whatever of that thing, and then creating that thing becomes its own system of marketing and producing the items and stuff. So it's just interesting to me how the prop department glues kloogie bits together. They take apart Revell V8 model engine kits and glue them together to create a prop costume or whatever for C-3PO. And then people are then doing the same thing to create their own version of that, or someone is making special to order kits that can replicate that. I find that endlessly fascinating because there's not like it's all based on the aesthetics and the emotions and the story and how people are affected by it, as opposed to a utility. It's not like you're going to AutoZone to get a new oil filter, you know. You're going to the store to find something that is totally unrelated to the thing. Like you're searching vintage camera stores for this flash bulb. You know what I'm saying? There's an ulterior reason for why you're there. I just find that amazing.
I was gonna say something, and it's completely slipped my mind. Oh, that was it. As you were talking about like the product being made like better, like I think I remember the story about the Mandalorian, where the stormtroopers they made for the show and reused from other productions were not as quality as the 501st stormtrooper outfits, which they hired as extras.
Yeah. It's interesting to me that there's also different versions of things, and then people might get disappointed because, for example, the screen accurate, I believe the screen accurate poncho for A Fistful of Dollars is actually kind of greenish brown, or it shows up on screen as a different color than it is in real life. So if you actually wanted the real thing, you wouldn't be getting the thing that you thought you wanted. There's like a color grading aspect of it that makes it so that you get a different color in the final print. And I find that interesting too, because then the choice becomes, all right, what do I really want here? Do I want the thing that actually was the color and a recreation of the actual poncho, or do I want the one that looks more like what I saw on screen? And then with costuming, I think it's interesting because people that deal that make props, they look at it for so long, they start to think about things like, do I want to have it battle damaged? How do I want to paint it? How do I want to do that? And then you end up getting things that are really detailed because they had the time and ability to iterate on it. There's a guy that made something called there's all these Mandalorian cosplayers. There's a guy that made a specific type of armor called Mandalorian Executioner armor. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
I feel like that has better design than any of the official designs. I don't know what it is about this person that allowed them to unlock that creative aspect of their mind where they could figure out how to make something that was more interesting than just another color iteration that had like a theme to it, because it's got the whole skeleton theme on it. I find that interesting how that creativity comes.
Be honest, I'm not
people.
a big fan of the skeleton look of the executioner helmet.
Really, doesn't it make sense though that would be like? Don't you think that there would be like a Mandalorian guy that would do that?
I think there is totally a Mandalorian guy who's like, I'm gonna make my helmet look like a skull, and it probably is quite intimidating. But at the exact same time, I just think it ruins the balance which the T-visor gives it. Like the T-visor is very good at balancing the design of the helmet. Otherwise it just becomes a slit. I'm not so big fan of the slit.
Didn't you do something
look.
similar with your visor right here?
Well, it's not just a slit though. it originally was a slit, but then I had them change it to be a bit bigger, so it's more like a triangle now. You can see it's curved in. And Glib has vanished. Is he gonna come back? I don't know. So I guess while Glib has vanished and hello Glib.
Whoops. Sorry.
Did you accidentally leave?
I meant to upload, like I wanted to show you show the audience the picture of the thing. But anyway, you were saying?
One thing which I find funny about sci-fi is like that everything's sparking and exploding when they're in damage in like a fight.
But that's the thing. Okay, so like that's actually interesting that you bring it up because like, all right, what are you gonna do? Like, how do you?
Yeah, that is my response as well. Like, okay, how else are you gonna show damage? But I think it's funny in Voyager that they just jam these consoles full of explosives and rocks.
Well, I always find it stupid that in Star Trek they're just standing around like that's what you do. You just stand there and like what happens if the gravity fails and your head smashes into the wall, you know what I mean? They're not really serious, you know what I mean? They're just like, "Oh, you get shot and then you die automatically or you fall down or something." Oh no. Cuz what are you going to do? You're going to put everybody into some sort of environment where you need to do wire work or something every time? Like how are you going to present sci-fi introduces all the worst obstacles for somebody with a low budget. And ironically, that's what always ends up happening. That's why he's just pressing a bunch of buttons. That's why there's steam. That's why there's magnesium sparks. That's why there's all sorts of shaky cam and flashing lights, which would probably never happen on a spaceship like that, right? Like if there's flashing lights in the spaceship, the electrical system's totally screwed. Fire and stuff like that. But he can still talk and use this computer and shit. Like it doesn't work. Come on.
My headcanon for why everything
visually
explodes is like it's the system's rerouting to make sure like essential systems still work. So we're like overpowered, like because especially when they've got shields
lock down
on.
auxiliary power. Sorry.
It's like, oh, we need to make sure the shield doesn't fail, so all the power just keeps going to it, which causes these overloads.
To me, it's always that, like, yeah, you got to do all the effects to, like, show it off, but to me, it's really about how the actors are selling it. I always thought, whenever I would watch the old Shatner Star Trek from the beginning, I'd watch The Cage and then The Man Trap, and I'd be like, oh, yeah, it's Shatner that made the thing work, because he's just, like, externalizing the emotions so well. There's a lot of, anybody can sit there and go, like, we got two fighters coming at us. It's hard to starboard, right? And then it's like, I can't hold them, chief, or whatever. But you need to have a person that's able to express that that's actually happening. And a lot of the problems that I see with the low budget, oh my god, did they have?
Yeah, they beam them on.
They can beam
okay, so the beaming technology wasn't intentionally ripping off. Okay, listen. The beaming technology was not intentionally ripping off Star Trek.
Oh, give me a break.
Okay, let me explain.
No.
The beaming technology was originally introduced by the Asgard, and it wasn't strictly beaming technology, but that's what it ended up turning into, because the Asgard were basically wiping off entire forces of Goa'uld off of a planet by just this beam just swept across fields, taking all of them up. And then that just eventually turned into Thor being teleported down into like the base, or him teleporting people up to his ship. And then as the Asgard were giving the humans their technology, they just ended up giving the beaming technology to the Daedalus.
I was just reading Eastland Burkholder's comment about the spaceship corridors, and it just made me think of like all the science fiction. Have you ever seen any body horror stuff that has like bioships?
I suppose these are
bioships
bioships.
Right, like living ships, not cybernetic, but like the idea of like physical ships in space. That are biologically alive. I always thought.
That's
such a
that's
weird,
the hive ships.
the hive ships, the Tyranids in 40K.
More explosions. Well, at least the shields are down this time, so the explosions maybe make a bit more sense.
I feel like, I used to be as a teenager, I was like, this show ripped off this show, but it was really more just like, I was becoming
It's
aware of the both of those things. Like it
it's
wasn't
just
really like
cliches that kept being reused
what
over and over again.
it's perfect that we're talking that this is the episode of Trope Talk because now we can talk about it. Like it's just perfect timing because the thing is that okay, I'm watching Rome and I'm going, wow, Game of Thrones ripped this off. But then I'm thinking, but Game of Thrones didn't rip off Rome, the TV series. Like maybe they looked at it and they went, this is what we should do with our show. But the book, it's based on a book. It just so happens that the narratives are related and could coincide and can reference each other in some sort of way that is familiar to humans. So like anytime someone comes up with an idea, you know, they want to be like, wow, this is the most unique original idea. And then somebody is going to come up to them and say, oh yeah, the Simpsons did it. And yeah, they really did that on Futurama. That's already been an episode of the Twilight Zone, man. Like it's always going to be like that. So I feel like it's been so long since I've heard an original idea. The only things that I feel like I hear now are new things that I haven't heard of yet that are put together, like new versions of things. There's always going to be a different new version of it. And then I also feel like the funniest thing about creativity and originality is that even if somebody does something cliche and somebody else tries to copy them, it's going to be different because it's two different people doing it. It's just automatically going to be different no matter what.
Another thing that just because we're talking about like cliches and tropes, another thing which I find really interesting is when people play off of tropes, like mechanically in the story, and that is something which you can see in like KOTOR, for example. In the first KOTOR game, a lot of the tropes of a lot of video games, you just kind of step into the shoes. It's like, oh, I have amnesia. I don't remember anything before the player just picked up the character. Oh, I'm just, accelerating this great. Like I'm learning the Force in like a week. That kind of trope, which a lot of people just kind of accept when it comes to video games because it's almost a necessary evil. But then as the game keeps progressing with KOTOR, they keep pointing out all these things that don't make sense. It's like, wait, hold on a minute. Why don't you remember anything? Wait a minute. Why are you so powerful with the Force and you've only been training for like a week? You're better than most Jedi. And as it keeps pointing it out throughout all of the game, it then ends up going to the big reveal of like, you are Revan, and all of a sudden everything slots into place and everything makes sense because the Jedi wiped your mind, but still wanted to use you to get to the star map, to find the Star Forge, to destroy it. And that is, I think, is a good way of playing off of common video game cliches and making it make more sense and giving such a wonderful, powerful twist.
I feel like I was just looking at Full Metal Jacket, and then before that I was watching Jarhead.
Full Metal Jacket must be very uncomfortable.
Full Metal Jackoff was kind of the blueprint for how Jarhead was going to proceed, but they're totally different movies. And then near the end of it, the primary difference between the two movies is actually put in the movie as a metaphor between the Marines from the Gulf War are coming home, and everybody's clapping, and they're on the bus, and they're driving through, and everybody's giving them a welcoming. And then a Vietnam vet gets on the bus, and he's also a Marine, and he's out of it, and all the Marines on the bus are like, yo, what's going on? And the guy that gets on the bus wants to sit with them because it makes you think like, oh, this guy that came back from the last war, the Vietnam War, probably wasn't treated the same way and wanted to experience the way that it was this time. And like that's the big difference. There's a huge generation gap. It's the same old story, but it's the generation difference. And if you try and get away from that, I feel like you're just barking up the wrong tree. Like searching for some sort of Mary Sue perfection, creative, unique thing is not really what you should be doing, or at least what I don't think I should be doing from that perspective, because there's nothing inherently special about each new generation except for the fact that it's the new generation of the time. So if you're going to tell a story, you might as well tell the story of your time period, put onto the screen and utilize what you have instead of trying to search for like the perfect thing that you're looking for that you may not be able to find yet. You have to put something together. And like I said, no matter what you're going to do, it's going to be unique to you because it's going to be based on you as opposed to whatever you're influenced by. It's like two different worlds reflecting each other, but they're both looking at the same kind of thing. It means that it's hard to rip something off unless you're intentionally trying to rip off some other person's person, their entire being, as opposed to just going, we have similar stories that cover the same thing. Like, does it? To go back to the Vietnam thing. I like all of the different Vietnam movies that have been made by all these different directors that I admire, but they're all completely different. Like, whenever somebody's going, what do you like better, Apocalypse Now or Platoon or Casualties of War or fucking Full Metal Jacket or any of these Vietnam War movies like Deer Hunter, they're all different types of narratives. They're all telling different types of stories, and they're all going about it in different ways. So like, I really feel like ultimately, so far what I have put together is that the usage of tropes or trying to avoid the usage of tropes it's futile. Whatever gets the job done, that makes it so that you are not like completely just copying somebody else or trying to take somebody else's narrative. Whatever gets the job done for your story is probably going to be unique to yourself in the long run, because it's going to be a product of you and the time. And you need to embrace that as opposed to running away from that. You should revel in your time.
It should always be based upon like what makes the story work better, rather than being 100% always original, because you're never going to be 100% original. And I find that kind of ironic with
No, I'm just kidding.
like Ryan Johnson. His attitude towards TLJ was making something that was completely original, but ends up making something which is like Empire Strikes Back in reverse, where instead of starting off at Hoth, you end at Hoth. In the middle you've got this chase, and you've got the sidetrack to Cloud City, and you've got them training with the Jedi, and it's not as original as I think Ryan Johnson was intending. But then he always was trying to subvert the expectations desperately but then that just made a story which didn't make any sense, as it's constantly just twisting and turning. It just doesn't work. You make a confused, contradicted story. Especially since it wasn't designed to accommodate all these twists. They just kind of come out of nowhere. If you were going to have a story which is just full of twists left, right, and center, you would need to like set that up from the get-go. Because then all of a sudden you've killed Snoke, but then no one to replace him. While if you had prepared to kill Snoke in the first movie and had him working for someone else, then you already had another villain to have, for your final movie.
Well,
and then it wouldn't be
thing.
so confused, and you just bring Palpatine back.
It's the perfect moment for one movie. And the climax of one movie is the sub-villain killing the villain. It's like, yeah, I get that. That makes sense.
But then it fucks up so much more.
Well, it doesn't. That's the funny thing. It's just that it messes up JJ's thing. Like, the idea that he takes the throne and he's in charge, that would have made perfect sense. But he doesn't. They bring back the Emperor. I don't think that's not even that bad. The thing
I don't think Kylo would work as the big villain, though, because he's more of the Darth Vader stand. Well, he's literally the Darth Vader stand-in.
Honestly, I would have rather Ryan Johnson did The Force Awakens. You know what I mean? I would rather him just start the whole thing in motion, because then his subversion thing would actually...
I would rather they just didn't make any more Star Wars films.
Yeah, but like, I would rather... Like, I'm going to go against the grain and say that I think that JJ was worse than Ryan Johnson. Because all of Ryan Johnson's ideas, when I really sit down and think about it, I go, these aren't... Like, the ideas aren't stupid. It's that they're flippantly dismissive of the fans and the audience. Like the idea that failure is the greatest teacher is not a stupid lesson. That actually sounds pretty smart.
Yeah, but then it
I hate
doesn't
to
work
say that.
considering that what has
No, I
Luke
think it does
learned?
work.
He dies in like 5 minutes. So what
It doesn't
does he
work for
really
it.
learn to carry on from that lesson?
It doesn't work for Luke because Luke should already know that lesson, like you're saying, right?
But it's also the fact that that failure was also a pretty big failure. We're not talking about failing an exam. We're not talking about tripping
No.
up and knowing to watch out for the red tape, which is on the floor
No,
for some
that's
bizarre reason.
that's
We
that's
were talking about
aim.
Luke Skywalker did something completely out of character to try and kill his own nephew for
No,
no
but that's not
reason.
his failure that Ryan invented is bad for him. He has good ideas and he's assigning them to the wrong characters. Like it's because if he made a movie and the movie was about an old samurai that gave up and he was like the greatest samurai ever and he gave up because one of his students started killing, I'd be like, wow, this is fucking genius, dude. Let me watch more of this samurai movie. But don't
But
make
it
it
doesn't
Luke
fit
Skywalker.
with the character of Luke Skywalker at all.
That's not Luke Skywalker in my mind. And as much as he wants to go and make, like you said, I think his original movie, it's like that's not Star Wars. And I think the biggest insult is that it's episode 8. We're in episode 8 and you're coming in, you're like in baseball there's 9 innings, right? I mean, not 9 innings. What am I talking about? There is 9 innings, but like there's a certain amount of batters. I can't believe I don't even remember this. But you know, he's batting in the 8th roll. That's like the second lowest roll, basically. You know what I'm saying? In the order. And then after that is the pitcher. So he's coming in and he's supposed to be at the bottom of the thing and just round out the entire thing. Or he's coming in there and he's trying to end the epic story or like set up the last thing right before the epic story ends. So it's supposed to be the darkest moment. What was the conflict that he was setting up? That it wasn't working. But the problem is that I feel like all these ideas are thrown together in that Kathleen Kennedy way. Like, he could go and make a science fiction movie with all of the ideas that he had intact, and it would probably be an alright movie in comparison if it wasn't a Star Wars movie. That's the biggest issue is what I'm saying. All those elements that have to do with Rey being a Mary Sue, I feel like those are all stupid Kathleen elements. And then all of the stupid ideas that we were like, this doesn't belong in Star Wars, are all Rian Johnson ideas that work in his movies. People like his movies because he makes them his way. That's why he has a career. People like that kind of thing. It's just that when you mix his audience, which is the hipster audience, with the Star Wars audience, it gets really cringy because it's a bunch of people that are all butt sniffers. You know what I mean? They're like, I love this fart. It's excellent.
All right. I was gonna say something else about tropes, but now it's slipped my mind.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, did I?
No, it's fine. You got a good conversation off.
My
But I'm just
brain's not
really
working.
trying to remember what I was going to talk about with tropes. Oh yeah, like I suppose there are cliches which you can try and avoid, but it should always be to the purpose of the media, as we were talking about before, not just escaping tropes for the sake of escaping tropes. Because if a trope works better for your story, then fine, go ahead and do it.
I think it
I
should
want
be
the trope out-
realistic. I think
like
that's the biggest thing for me.
Mm.
Like
Because
if
I
you're
was
gonna-
thinking about the my sci-fi, and one of them was like I wasn't big on the idea of lasers because lasers, for one, they're very technically easy to do, but they're not always easy to pull off well, because sometimes they can really cheap. So that was one thing I was thinking, and I thought that while bullets, muzzle flashes, that works easily enough, and then you'd have a few like smoke tracers or whatever to further improve the effect. So actually, you can visibly see there's bullets going forwards and backwards. And as well as like red alert. Red alert is always used in almost every single science fiction. And I was playing, what was it?
I thought you were
World
talking
of-
about. I thought you were talking about Command and Conquer for a second, and then you started.
Well, I
talking
was like,
about...
world of warships. I remember hearing when they were going to battle, they say general quarters, and I was like, well, what's general quarters? And I look it up, and it's like what the Navy used to say red alert. And it's like general quarters. I think that works better. I like general quarters rather
Action
than
stations.
red alert.
Battle stations. Yeah, I don't like any of that shit though. You know, just use
Okay.
whatever's military standard, I guess. That's the other.
I think it just gives a bit of more of a unique twist. It's still doing the same cliche of like red alert, but it's just giving it a different twist to say general quarters.
This is why I love Venture Brothers so much, because there's an episode where Brock Sampson is, I think it's the wedding episode or something, or no, Brock Sampson and Doc Venture and all the whole gang get kidnapped by the Monarch, and Brock is there when the Monarch gets attacked, and his like battle mode goes into effect, like his red alert, but his walls go from being pink to violet, and Brock is just like, your battle color is purple. Like a joke about how somebody just wants to be like thematic with their costume, and so they make it an odd color. Like nobody ever goes green alert because everything's great. You know what I'm saying? Everybody has to do the same type of cliche thing because there's something attached to it. Red is danger. You know what I'm saying? So what is it that you could possibly do to get away from that, to make it unique to your own brand, and yet but you still have to convince the audience that something bad is happening. And it's funny that you mentioned the red alert thing, because Nicholas Meyer, the guy that did Wrath of Khan and Undiscovered Country, he hated the red alert lighting, so he tried to get out of the red alert as fast as possible. Which leads me to the question: do you do something because you wanted something out of the visuals, like how you're talking about bullets, like that's a aesthetic visual thing, or do you want to do it because you're trying to convince that the world is a certain way? Like, I always found it interesting, I think I've mentioned this before, that Cowboy Bebop has just like regular pistols and stuff, but then it also has spaceships, which is kind of to imply that the technology in one sense is really advanced, but then in the other sense it's really mundane and things haven't really advanced outside of this specific thing. Like, yeah, spaceships exist. Yeah, there's a Dyson sphere or whatever. Yeah, there's space truckers, but people are still using regular pistols. And there's not really a reason that's given for that. It's just stylishly pinned into the show. This is what the show's going to be like. It's going to have saxophone music and jazzy beats going on, and all the characters are going to be dressed like it's a completely different era than science fiction. So I feel like if you're going to go down the path of aesthetic choice making when it comes to storytelling and design, then I think that you should definitely lean into mythology, and you should lean into the story's emotional power and its transformative experience of the character going through the hero's journey. That is what I would focus on, because that's what Star Wars, that's what mysticism and the fantasies and the great epics are about. And then if you want the hard sci-fi stuff, you should design the world from the realistic perspective, and then you'll get something more like The Expanse, but at the cost of that other aspect. Like if you're making Alien or Aliens where you're trying to reason out everything, you lose the epic adventure aspect of it.
Like the fantasy element, because there is a fantasy element to things like Star Trek and Star Wars, or even Mass Effect, which I think does get removed if you add more realism. Because yeah, you were talking about before with the like all the explosions and sparks and rocks which explode out of consoles in Star Trek or in any other sci-fi, which comes to cliche. If you were just having them rock about and not much happening, which would be realistic, it loses that excitement and drama that you really often impacts the audience a lot better. Because if you add the ship just visibly getting damaged, then it's like, oh, we're in danger. Everything's exploding. There's spikes going off. It's a visible way of telling the your audience that the ship is damaged.
Well, okay, so two things. One is there's an uncanny valley in between the suspension of disbelief for straight fantasy and sci-fi stuff where it's all visual, just like you have to suspend your disbelief to believe, for example, like in Cowboy Bebop, that people are using the 9mm pistol, and they also have spaceships that can do travel in hyperspace and stuff like that, right? They're not using some super hyper gun that can auto aim itself, because that's not what the story's about. The story's about shooting each other and with pistols around corners and stuff. And then there's an uncanny valley between that and 2001: A Space Odyssey, where everything is supposed to be very logicked out. And the way that you express your story in the same sense is going to be, you're going to be thinking, am I going to be cutting to the quick of it and just showing people cause and effect and using typical tropes and typical genre keys and framing techniques for my story, or am I going to try and explain my own version of that? It's like with foreign languages in Star Trek, you have Klingon, and you actually have to work out what that's going to be. And then you have to think, do I want to have the Klingon speaking in English for the sake of the audience, or do I want, for the sake of the audience's sense of authenticity, that they speak the actual language? When do I do something that's going to be overly explicit so that I can show the audience how things work, and when am I going to assume that they understand how something works just by showing them how it works? That's another key difference between something like Star Trek, where things are explained, and something like Star Wars, where you're shown, and you're just told a little blurb about it. Like, you pick up a lightsaber and it's a more elegant weapon, but you don't know what powers that thing. Not in the movies. There's no reason to talk about that. But then if it was Star Trek, it would be like, Data would be like, yes, the Jedi weapon. It uses a kyber crystal and blah, 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 and then he would have some quote to rattle off. But that's not how the kind of thing is presented, because it's about a different quality that they're trying to present. The world of Star Trek is not going to be about swashbuckling, sword fighting all the time, because they want to go back to talking about the philosophical aspects of it. They want to go back to the Navy drama. And likewise, I don't really think you're going to see anytime in the future a Star Wars equivalent to Wrath of Khan, where two ship captains are like challenging each other on the bridge. It's not the paces don't work together. However, you could make an amazing sci-fi on your own that had both of those qualities, where a guy was sword fighting in the corridors of a giant Death Star, and at the same time two ship captains are having a duel of the ages. You know what I mean? There's no reason why you can't have that. But how you glue those things together is going to have to do with what I said with the Uncanny Valley thing. It's going to be like, do you want to go George Lucas and just hand wave the fact that things work the way they do visually and show people how cause and effect like a comic? Or do you want to get down into it and go, this is a phase coil, and it attenuates when it connects to the conduit nodule, and then you have to come up with fake science. It's a question that has to do with what's the substance and what's your audience and what is conducive to the story.
Star Wars is more about, okay, we established this thing, we established that thing, and we're establishing this is the way it works in the world, but it's not about, as you were saying, explaining how it works. Like the same with the way hyperspace works. It's never explained how it goes to hyperspace. It's only that we establish that hyperspace is a thing. It needs time to calculate between jumps. It takes quite a bit of time, and I think that is perfectly functional. But then it just means that in every other iteration, you need to make sure that you're sticking to the rules. And if you start doing things like hyperspace ramming, just as an example, then you have to try and work out, okay, does this break what was already established? Because if it does work, then why is it never been used before? Why is it only now that someone has thought, well, what if I ram a ship with my ship going into hyperspace? Oh, that'll actually be pretty powerful. It's not a new idea of using, fast and light technology as a weapon. Halo did it in Reach, the game, not the book. Um, so yeah, it's plenty of people have
I
the
mean,
idea.
yeah, but it's one of those things where I don't think you can really work it all out. I mean, what does that mean? If you're going almost light speed, then why we've mentioned, why do you need lasers or something like that? If you have the ability to launch yourself at that speed, wouldn't you just have weapons that were designed like that?
Well, with the suspension disc, but well, most ideas of vast light technology aren't launching an object like a bullet or a weapon, because if you're going at fast light speeds, it's usually some kind of field or something which is generated around the ship, which makes it easier to go through space or puts it in a different dimension or whatever, which just explains away how it can do this. But fast and light technology in most science fictions are often expensive, or they're
I was just thinking,
it's just because you can't really fit a hyperspace engine on a bullet, can you? But in Star Trek, if you
well,
were able to use hyperspace as a weapon, you would just make like missiles or something. You'd make a missile with a hyperspace engine on, just a big mass, and lob it at an enemy and use
why
that to
not
blow up the Death Star.
why not like an X-wing sized missile, right?
I think that you'd probably want something a bit larger than an X-wing to blow up something like the Death Star. But an X-wing could probably do significant damage to a Star Destroyer.
Now people think that, but I always thought that Han Solo's statement was basically that if you actually tried to do it, you would just end up blowing yourself up. That it's more like it wouldn't help. It wouldn't destroy the thing that you're trying to destroy. It would destroy you. That was what my impression was. But like,
Yeah, and I think that would work perfectly fine, given the logic that we have established in Star Trek, in Star Wars, where no one really uses hyperspace as a weapon.
I mean, if the audience is so upset that they can come up with something that the creators of the thing can't come up with, and that's what they're left with, I think that it's very frustrating when something like that happens. I mean, that doesn't often happen with a franchise. Before The Last Jedi, people were always complaining about how I don't know, Anakin was able to pilot a Naboo starfighter in the prequels. And then before the prequels, it was, how come they don't just fly straight at the hole in the Death Star? It's like, okay, you can't do that because you get shot down from the surface of the thing. That is actually a much better argument. Yeah, okay, I see that. And then you think about Anakin, you're like, all right, well, you know what? He has the Force. Anakin has the Force. He's the chosen one. So maybe he flew around a little bit, but it's not as believable. But it's still not as bad as somebody going, okay, now we have a precedent where you can take a Han Solo. No, it's a bigger ship, but forget that, right? Forget that it's a large sized ship. Let's just take a smaller sized X-wing sized ship, like I was talking about, like a missile. And the amount of damage that could do on something that wasn't the largest ship ever made, that the capital ship of the Resistance took out something that was multiple times larger.
The Mega Star Destroyer.
Yeah, the Mega Superstar. So to talk about something that was smaller than that, it makes sense that you would have a droid controlling some sort of smaller ship that could then smash into it, right? Because Obi-Wan was saying, like, flying is for droids. And we know that they have heat-seeking or whatever seeking or tracking missiles because of Attack of the Clones. The problem is that...
Well, as well as Revenge of the Sith.
Right. Well, you're right about that. Yeah, that's true. The problem is that it goes back to... it goes back to this idea where the more that you iterate on something that was taken for granted in the first place, the more you highlight how you took it for granted in the first place. So all the little details that you gloss over because you're too busy enjoying how good everything else is makes you wonder about the realism or the authenticity of the situation more. Like, why is there a monster in the trash compactor on the Death Star? Like, that's such a weird thing to think about for real. You come up with some reason in your head, and then you want to move on. You know what I'm saying?
Well, again, it's just about the idea of it's not about having everything be realistic. It's just setting up a logic and then saying, well, this is this works this way, this works that way, and always staying contained in
Yes.
that logic. Because there is probably some explanation that you can use of why there's this monster in the trash compactor, and it does disappear. So I imagine it's some kind of snake thing, like an egg somehow got taken aboard, flushed down a toilet like alligators, and then it's just grown into this beast,
The thing,
which now just lives in the pipes or whatever. So you can make explanations and make logic, just don't ever contradict the logic to say that this can never happen, otherwise the world will start breaking apart, and you'll have all these contradictions of like, wait, why didn't they use these hyperspace missiles before? Why didn't they just use this force power to heal Qui-Gon while he was dying? Or why didn't,
oh yeah,
Luke
that's a good one.
Skywalker just heal himself? Or why didn't Anakin just heal Padme? All these problems. Or why didn't Luke heal Vader?
Well, that's why I was
That's
saying
one of the
that
problems
JJ
with introducing things like
J-
force healing into the world without properly setting up, like, oh well, force healing can only be used by certain individuals and they have to train their entire life. It's not something every Jedi has.
That's why JJ's worse, in my opinion, is because he comes up with worse canon-breaking ideas.
Hmm.
You know,
Well, I would agree. I think
somehow
that
Palpatine returned. Wait, what?
with
Somehow.
TLJ, my idea has always been that's what broke the illusion, because that's what J.J. Abrams is. He's an illusion artist. He distracts the audience with one hand. Say, oh, look at the nostalgia, look at the fast-paced action, and then by the end of the movie, you think, oh well, I enjoyed that, and he didn't really think about how it doesn't make sense. And I always use 2009 Star Trek as an example of this. Of the entire movie is going so fast that you never process, wait a minute, this entire ship is crewed by cadets, and they never bring this up again. They never replace them. Why is the capital ship of the Enterprise crewed by cadets? And you say, oh well, the entire Starfleet was just off in a battle with the Klingons over there. So wait, the entire Federation fleet, all of it, in a battle with the what? And then you start saying, why do they have all these ships which are brand new sitting around waiting for cadets to crew? And then you start wondering, wait, how does going into the clouds of Titan hide you from the Nemesis?
Right.
Because surely, like, you're still, well, not hyperspacing, warping into the moon, and then and you don't think about this. And a lot of people I've seen, when they talk about Star Trek 2009, they think, oh, it's a fine film, but it's not a good Star Trek film. I'd say it's just not a good film in
No, it's
general,
not.
and that is what
I
he's
just
also
re-downloaded
done
it.
with.
I just re-downloaded all of the JJ Star Treks because I just watched all of the Star Trek original movies, and I want to watch those back. And I just started, and it's like, you're right. It's just this. He just rips off the stuff that he's seen before. It's just callbacks and references. There's nothing. It's all just quick. We got to move to the next location.
Quick
It's the next
nostalgia.
little thing.
Let's introduce Khan. Remember Khan?
And he
So
says
even
it.
though
He
that wouldn't
says he says his name. He's like, my name is Khan, and then
but
just
no
both be
one's
like,
gonna know who the fuck that
I don't know
is
who that
because
is,
they
yeah.
haven't met him before in this universe or timeline.
It should be more like Khan, and then Kirk should be like, I don't know
Who?
that is, and then Spock should be like, I looked him up. It's blah 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 from the Gene Wars, and then Kirk should be like, the Eugenics Wars. What? I learned about that at the Academy. Oh wait, I didn't go there. Oh wait, I did go there. I thought I enlisted. What the fuck is going on in this universe?
Yeah, and I also the idea of J.J. Abrams
Wait, just
distracting
stop
the
there.
audience.
Just the idea of J.J. Abrams pisses me off. He's just
But
the guy that he
it's
found his way.
an
He
idea
snuck
which is
into. He snuck into Steven Spielberg's house and stole his clothes and was like, "Look, I'm the next."
Yeah,
Steven
I really
Spielberg."
don't get like where people call him the next Spielberg. I don't see the connection at all.
like-
It's not
he's
even the
almost
same
60.
style of movie.
No, he just rips off Spielberg. Super 8 was a rip off of Spielberg, and then he wears the clothes, and then he just goes like, everything's magic, and he gets.
Oh,
out
it
and
was
do
Super
stuff.
8 and the camera just spinning around the actors. and they're just like, oh, look at this, it's amazing. It makes the audience think there's more actually going on. It makes it more interesting. It's like, no, JJ, it makes everyone really dizzy. Stops having the camera spin around, for the love of God.
See, if the guy that makes the Blumhouse movies, that Jason Blum, if he was a director, he would be J.J. Abrams, because it's the same thing. It's like pick a genre kind of. If you pick blockbuster as your genre, and then you just try and do the minimal amount of thing and just bait people into the thing, even if he doesn't have the IP, even if it's Cloverfield and it's not Godzilla or whatever, he still rips off the other movie. You know what I'm saying? It's still, and then when he has the brand, he still rips off the movie. So even if it's an original movie, it's a rip off of the other movie. So no matter what, he's ripping somebody off. And that's the thing about like the Blum movies, when they're not ripping off the other movies, it's the same movie every time. It's like the same techniques. Low budget, stupid, whatever shit. And then when he gets the brand like Halloween and they produce the movie, it's the same shit. It doesn't improve just because they have a bigger budget and a bigger brand. That's the problem. JJ doesn't improve based on the fact that he gets Star Wars. He doesn't improve because of Star Trek. He just makes the same thing again. And it's the same thing you've seen before, except it's his thing. It's
Right,
funny. It's funny
was-
because I remember I was saying like no matter what you do, it's gonna be unique to you. The thing is that if you're a rip-off artist, then you don't have a unique personality, and that's the ultimate thing that I see in these things. Like JJ doesn't have a take on film that is like he hasn't built or cultivated a personality or a perspective or a persona that is a unique identity. He's not like John Milius, who's like, I want to make epic adventure movies like John Ford and Akira Kurosawa, and I want to be a Zen anarchist, and I want to ride motorcycles around and fuck bitches and stuff. Like, he's not like that. He's not like Steven Spielberg, who's a young prodigy who just really wanted to make films ever since he was a little kid and snuck his way onto the sets and found, made his own office, and then people asked him who he was, and he was like, oh, I don't even work here. I'm not even allowed to be here. And they gave him a job anyway. He's not like Lucas, who was like a promising young kid who would have been good at whatever he does, but he just chose film. You know what I mean? He's a guy that looked around and just copied everybody's homework. And if that's who you are, then that's what you're going to put out there. And that's why the mystery box thing is so revealing. Because he's like, when I'm saying, if he has a segment in his TEDx talk on the mystery box where he says, the mystery box is all of us. And it's funny because he said, he got this mystery box from his grandfather, and he's marveled at it because whatever's inside it is less interesting than whatever he can imagine is inside it. And to me, I just think like when you connect those two pieces together, the mystery box is all of us, and I'm too afraid to open this one that I got, that means that JJ to me is an empty box. And whatever you imagine is in the box is more interesting than what's actually in the box. And that means his films are exactly like that. Whatever you imagine the film is going to be is more interesting than what the film actually is. Even the filmmakers I don't like, because I don't like their style, like I'm not a big fan of Shaky Cam and Paul Greengrass, I still know that it's his style. If you talk about J.J. Abrams' style, people just go, lens flares. Lens flares aren't a style. You know what I'm saying? That's a gimmick.
They're a visual cancer. That's what the lens flares are.
Yeah, that's like saying wearing pants is a style. That's not it's a style in the idea like, yeah, you have to wear clothing, but it's just wearing clothing, And
I would say that I wouldn't really say J.J. Abrams' thing is the lens flare. Obviously, that's what people went to after Star Trek 2009. But after The Force Awakens, I would say it is the mystery box that he's more well known for. And I was trying to link this back to the conversation about earlier between J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson, that the entire Force Awakens was just trying to, like, it's so fast paced that you're not supposed to think about, wait, why can Rey like fly the Falcon? Wait, why can Rey understand Wookiee? Wait a minute, why can Rey shoot amazingly? And it's just beat after beat after beat after beat after beat with no time to breathe, just like 2009. But on top of that, you have the nostalgia of wait, look, it's the Falcon. Look, it's a Star Destroyer again. Look, it's our Darth Vader. Look, it's our Emperor. Look, this is remember
Chewie.
like
We're old.
remember Han Solo. Remember all these characters. Remember Leia. And then
Wouldn't it be funny?
that's the part where you get to the end of the film on your first watching, and everyone was just like up in arms about The Force Awakens, crying its praises from the rooftops because they had watched the film, they had not thought about it at all, and they were so distracted by the light show that they thought, I had an amazing time. I loved it. And it wasn't until people, a lot of people, well, for some people, I should say, apparently we've got Streamlabs donations. I'm very sorry, Fairy Joker. I didn't check, but here we are. Fairy Joker for $3. Chivalry of a Failed Knight and Asterix Wars are two anime that came out the same week.
That. Yeah, he said there are these two animes that are almost exactly the same. First
the heron is a princess with red hair and uses fire magic. The meet when heroes walk in on the heroine, and wait, he put it twice. Walk in on the heroine, changing. The setting is a school to train magic users and focuses on an inter-school competition. This description allies to both anime. What do you make of this?
Well, I haven't seen him yet.
Well, what do you think of the very similar? Like the description applies to both.
Well, you gotta watch you gotta watch it to get the full. As far as I know, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's like a whole component to it. Well, I don't know if we'll watch it here, but I'll check it out. And we can talk about it.
So as I was saying, there were people. I remember seeing videos way before TLJ came out of people picking apart the film, and then the illusion was starting to drop at that point. But as the illusion was starting to drop, so did the excuses kept coming up of no, the problems with like why Rey is so powerful, that's going to be explained in the next film. That they had to do it this way after the prequels, and then it got to like TLJ, where that's when it really the straw broke the camel's back. So a lot of the damage, this is something I've been saying for quite a while, by the way, a lot of the damage which has been done, which has made a lot of fans upset, was majoritively done by JJ, and it was just Rian Johnson which broke the illusion, rather than Rian Johnson breaking everything. He only really broke the like Luke Skywalker and a few other aspects.
He did as much as he could to like just completely fuck with the fans' perception of what the content was. Like Luke calling the weapon a laser sword, like, and people are like, why would he call it a laser sword? And then somebody points to how Anakin called it a laser sword.
Yeah, but he was a child, and he didn't
right?
know anything about it.
Like trying to piss us off. You know what I mean? Like, haha, he called it a laser sword because that's what your grandma calls it. You know what I mean? That's what your mom, who doesn't know anything about it, calls it. You know, what's Luke Skywalker doing? What's this young man doing with this laser sword? And then he just puts that in the movie. And then there's a whole segment about, hey, did you know that the TIE fighters and the X-Wings are made by the same rich people on Casino Planet?
Well, then they're not, because they're made by completely different corporations.
Yeah, but that's like, it doesn't even matter anymore, man.
Like Sinar Fleet Systems and Incom, they're like separate companies.
You don't understand, man. It's the war economy, dude. They're just both making money for like each other. You know what I mean? Competition just means like they're making more money.
What really also didn't help as well was Rian Johnson's attitude towards criticism of his movies. I always look at people in terms of like a professional and a personal level. So I look at Ryan, trying to think of a different one that's maybe better to explain. I look at the creative work of perhaps who's the guy that did the first Avengers movie?
Kenneth Burn. No, that's not the right
No,
guy.
he did Firefly, didn't he?
No.
And Joss Whedon, that's it.
Joss
I'm thinking
Whedon
of
didn't
Joss
do the
Whedon.
first Captain America
Did
movie.
he? No, no, no. Sorry, Avengers movie. I thought I said
Yeah, that was just Joss Whedon.
Joss Whedon. Yeah, so Joss Whedon, I think he's a perfectly fine creative, but it seems that it's quite possible that he is a huge asshole personally. I
Mm.
can't speak from obviously from personal experience. It's just from like what has been going around. So, and I always do judge them. And if Ryan Johnson was a lot more open towards the criticisms of like his films, and he wasn't such an asshole, then I would I think I would like him. I would probably like Ryan Johnson, but I don't because he's acted like such a petulant child because he can't take any criticism of his media. And I'll probably say that I really like Dave Filoni, despite the fact that I heavily criticize almost everything he makes, like from The Mandalorian to Bad Batch to Rebels to Resistance, or even parts of the Clone Wars. Uh, I think aren't all that I criticize them a lot. And when it comes to other people like John Favreau, like he can make good stuff like the first Iron Man movie, but I still like him personally. The his show of the Mandalorian, you have to look at them in two separate ways: the professional of the media and the personal level. Would you agree?
Um. Well, I mean, I don't care if the person that makes the art is an asshole. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't really have. I don't think I
Well,
have the
I'm
same
saying I
standards as
don't
most
judge
people.
the individual based on if they made a bad movie. I
Oh,
judge the
that's what you meant.
individual based on the, like, I don't. That's what I was saying. I don't judge Ryan Johnson for because he made TLJ. I judge him because of his reaction towards the criticisms and how he's acted like a petulant child.
Right. Right. I mean, I don't stop watching Kevin Spacey movies. You know what I'm saying?
Like even in terms of Kevin Spacey movies, it's even though it turned out that he was a horrible person, there are a lots of people which are involved in those productions, like everything from directors to writers
Right, but
and other actors.
I'm gonna say his stuff is still good though. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
He's still a good actor. I'm not gonna fucking be like, oh my god, I can't like these movies anymore because this guy did this thing. You know what I mean? It's like that's bullshit.
well, they're an actor. They're playing someone else, which is much better than the individual that they actually are.
So
So yeah,
there's another
I think I'm fine with still watching Kevin Spacey movies, but I'll agree he's a complete twat.
another Nicholas Meyer quote that's really great is that actors become characters and movie stars have other people movie stars have the characters become them, which I thought was interesting. Uh, and I really feel like I don't really care if Kevin Spacey or any of these different people are like really bad people if their art is good. I'm still gonna enjoy the art, but at the same time, it's like if other people don't want to mess with that, if they disagree with that, I'm not gonna hold that against them. You know what I'm saying? I just think that it's a little bit silly that people are signing up for something like episode 8 of something and they don't like the fans and they don't want to hear criticism, they don't want to do all this stuff, and they want creative freedom and stuff. It's like, well, why did you sign up for the job? It's the wrong job. It's like you hate corporations, you hate using iOS products, but you want to work for Apple. Doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I suppose sometimes we can't always pick and choose the jobs that we get.
Well, I think everybody's
Sometimes you have
fucked
to
up.
put money on the table.
I think everybody's a little messed up, and then I also think art comes from weirdos. I think everybody that works in art is weird inherently, so everybody's gonna have a weird angle in some way. Like when you're talking about how like, oh, this guy, you know, he's an asshole. I was just thinking about how Mel Gibson like has that audio where he's like talking about how he like hates that his wife brings these black guys to the basketball games that he's at or something like that, and he's like, wow, Mel Gibson's such a piece of shit. He's screaming at his girlfriend who's recording him so that she can release it to the media and shit. It's like, there's so many reasons why somebody could be seen as being a bad person, and then there are so many reasons why a person could be seen as a bad person or could become a bad person. You know,
Mm.
it's like I view a hero as not something that somebody like you don't get to if you a hero stops a burglary and a woman from getting beaten, that guy's a hero, you know what I mean? But he doesn't stay a hero 20 years later just for that, you know what I mean? That's what I feel like a hero steps up for the occasion. It's like something that you do right then. You know what I'm saying? It's like a bad person. Someone could be a bad person momentarily, or they could be a bad person for 2 years, or 2 minutes, or their whole life. You know, it's how many things do you want to judge somebody for, and what's the weight of that judgment? That's the other thing. You know, so a social faux pas is one thing, a crime is another thing. And then what's really interesting is this idea of disrespecting fans, and then the other side of it, which is now like fan entitlement. Like you're not entitled to the creative doing what they want to, you know, what you wanted them to do. Besides, it's not for you anymore. It's a new age. You need to get out of the way for characters like what is it, Ironheart or whatever her name is, or you know, just some annoying woman that is 12 and is a super genius, you know. Like you're just sexist because you don't like a 12-year-old super genius. It's like, no, I didn't like Anakin either. I don't like any of that shit. The only miniature genius I like is Aang, and that's because he's the Avatar.
Is Aang really a genius though?
No, he's not. He's kind of a moron in a lot of ways.
Yeah, like
He's
he's
a
the
little kid.
Avatar, but he's not like incredibly intelligent.
He's not omniscient, you know what I mean? He's not flawless. He's not a strong, empowered woman that don't need no man.
I don't think if there's anything else to talk about now. We could always move on to like the actual
Well, what we were talking
trope.
about the Stargate thing before that, right? That was what it was?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, you wanted to talk about the trope thing because that sounds fun. I'm interested in that.
Also, because I think the original trope talk was the idea of making a story based off these tropes. We're already like an hour in. We're gonna have an hour and a half. Well, actually, even an hour and a half, just an hour and 10 minutes. Or we could talk.
What I really wanted to do is with the trope thing was like put it up to some like randomizer thing and then just get like a random thing out of the grab bag. But if you just want to like read off a couple of them and try and put it together, that'd be interesting as well. Like it really doesn't matter. I just want to. You just throw a couple of them out there and we'll try and put it together.
All right. Do you want to back them? There's a few. There's things like anti-hero sliding scale of Shiny versus Grifty, conflicts, tonal shifts, really cliches or tropes.
Okay, so I think
Time-
what he was saying was that he wants us to look up look up these terms. You know what I mean? And we can just talk about them individually.
I don't think that the tropes. I understand things like the tone shifts, like aspects of.
No, duo
like
tropes is an
writing.
entry. Tropes where two characters are paired with each other, whether it's friends, lovers, enemies, or any other relationship. I mean, maybe if he's right, like if he's saying, okay, combine duo tropes with Asimov's 3 kinds of science fiction and conflicts. But conflicts as a trope is more of a topic of discussion. You know what I'm saying? So like in duo tropes, like if let's say we're just talking about the trope by itself, right? So duo tropes where 2 characters are paired with each other, whether it's friends, lovers, enemies, or any other relationship, including but not limited to X is this to Y. Okay, so like action duo, Cain and Abel, Blood Brothers, that kind of thing. Like tropes by themselves, as we were saying, let's say that the idea of a duo trope, how deep can you go with just one of those points on a line, right? So we have the idea of 2 characters that could be a duo together. They're friends that they could betray each other, or one of them could go astray, or one of them could die, and then it's a story about the other one. You could mold that any way you want to. That's what I was saying. Like, how many of these do we need to combine before we have a unique, identifiable story, right? So let's put that duo trope thing on hold for a second. If we take, let's see, Elijah Tism what he was saying. We got something like red shirts, right? So we combine the red shirts from his thing, and we can combine the duo tropes from Asius, and then we could combine something that like Fairy Joker said, which was ghosts, right? So red shirt ghosts that are haunting a duo. Instantly, three of those tropes I have a story in mind.
But
Two
idea
guys that are
the idea of the red shirts are like the trope is that you have background characters who just get killed off.
Right, so you make the
because you need, so you need to kill off these background characters to then turn them into ghosts.
No, you don't need to do that. They could be haunted by the red shirts. It could be it could be Spock and McCoy, or Spock and Captain Kirk.
No, because then that's not a trope. You're just taking literal red shirts and making a Star Trek fan fiction.
But that's the trope is based on, okay, so non-red.
The trope is based off of Star Trek, but the trope is not talking about the
trope doesn't come from Star Trek. Star Trek just the red shirts represent the idea really well. But what I'm saying is any background character group, it's easy for it to be Star Trek because it's literally just the red shirts, right? But what I'm saying
then if you just make it the red shirts, like haunting Spock and thing, it's not going in feeding into the trope, because the trope is the idea of killing off these background characters for the sake of like stakes, and they're just there to die.
Okay, so it doesn't what I'm saying is that it doesn't matter. All it has to be is we pick a setting where there would be red shirts. Who's expendable? That means that there's some sort of organization that's doing something, right?
Yeah.
And then the duo has to play into that. The default thing that I'm thinking about is that it'd be really funny if there was an episode of Star Trek where they land on a planet and all of the red shirts that have died on the planet are haunting them or something like that. Or maybe there's an episode of something.
But we're not making a fan fiction.
No, but it doesn't matter. I'm saying it could be anything. It could be a science fiction series. It doesn't even have to be. It could be two guys that are a part of a space fleet. They crash land on a planet, and everybody is dead except for them. Except their disembodied voices are speaking to the duo, trying to get them to save them from death, because they still are there. They're ghosts. So they either are trying to find a way to get themselves back alive into their bodies, or they're trying to move them to the like allow them to finally stay dead. You know what I'm saying? But what I'm suggesting is that the development of the story from only 3 tropes is possible. I don't know if it's possible with 2. You could take the red shirts and make them army soldiers. You could make them police officers. You could make them civilians. You can make them literally anybody you want. But they're background characters in a larger story. That's easier to do if it's an already established story. But let's say it's not. They could just be any expendable person could be those red shirts. And then the main characters would be the ones that are haunted by them. That's what I was suggesting.
All right.
So
just because I want to read off the super chat. Sorry for leaving it so long. Machine Gun Odison for $5. Gene made sure all the minor things were measured and mapped out thoroughly. The deck plans for the Constitution retrofit Enterprise is a great example of this.
The refit. Yeah. It's
I'm gonna be honest.
It's really cool that people do the due diligence, like those cut. Everybody I know that was a kid at one point, and most people have been kids at one point, have looked at those DK Star Wars cutout books, and I think everybody loves cutouts. You know what I'm saying? So why not have a blueprint for your actual ship and try and work out how many people are going to be on there? Because you can play off that then. Then you can have an episode where Data is being challenged by Crusher on how many people are on this ship? That number keeps getting smaller. Something's going on here, Data. It's good to know how much of something you have, how much munitions you have, when you have to go back into port, all those things, because then you can structure your story around that, or structure your story around elements of that. So if there's a space travel thing, if the point of the story is they get from one side of the galaxy to the other, you have reasons why they would have to go to different places on the way there.
You also need reasons of like why there's that much crew, because I'm trying to imagine like how much there really is to do on a starship. Relatively for the Enterprise's size, it's an incredibly small amount of people that work on it, you'd be like walking for miles before you actually came across someone. But for like you need someone for like you need people for maintenance, obviously. They need people to work the ship and maybe security and medical personnel based on how much you have there on the ship. Then you just got questions like, wait, what did the other 1,000 something do?
Okay, so here's another one. Here's your creative job right now, right? So you have to construct a story with a rotating protagonist and switching point of view. It has to have an epic last stand, and it has to have Oscar bait.
So epic last stand, Oscar bait.
And a rotating
I'll
protagonist.
I'll share the screen of this.
And if anybody in chat has any ideas, just throw any trope
Right.
that you can think of. Just throw them out there. That's what I'm saying. It's like it really doesn't. If you could just pick any of them, we could just knock them out. You know what I'm saying?
So what were the other ones? Epic last stand, Oscar bait.
And rotating protagonist / switching point of view. That sounds kind of like Flags of Our Fathers and.
So
Letters
obviously
from
the
Iwo
Oscar
Jima.
bait has to be. When we talk about Oscar bait, it's usually things like crying.
Somebody
or
said
like
Band of Brothers.
it's like lots of crying. It's like the trying to pull the emotional heartstrings. So you can probably have
Lord
like
of the Rings.
some kind of emotional thing before the last stand.
Is that a trope, Matthias? I don't know if that's officially or whatever listed as a trope. Smart
Um,
black girl.
It probably like at this point is a trope. Like watching Black Panther and so many others. So smart,
Black and
girl.
nerdy. That's what they call it. I typed in smart black girl and it came up with black and nerdy magical Negroes.
Can you edit the document?
Sassy black woman.
I could have sworn I sent you the link to edit it.
Did you? I'm sorry.
It's in private chat.
Do you know where? Oh, jeez. Oh, that's where you sent it.
Yeah, so
Oh,
you
you're
can.
typing in there. Okay, cool.
Yes,
Okay.
that's the point of it.
Got it. Because I can see you typing in. It's on the.
Yes, so you should be able to type in this
I think I have to hit.
and
Edit.
make it. I
Request
thought
edit
I said it so you
access.
could just.
No, I don't think so.
You might need to send a request.
Request edit access. Okay, so you got to come up with your story.
All right.
Just a good
Okay.
idea.
So, what were the other tropes? Because let's just try and get a few more down first.
You want another one?
Yeah, a few more.
Okay, so you want 5 then maybe?
Yeah, because
Okay,
I think we were
so-
talking about like what's about red shirts or something else.
Sorry, here. Let me see. Okay. You also need. Let's see. You need an anti-hero. And
Yeah. What about the
and a coming of age story.
what about self-insert?
Okay, you can. That was what I was. Okay, that's perfectly fine. That was the other
Coming
one
of
I was gonna do.
age.
Well, that's too many. 6 is too many.
No, what I'm thinking is you tie the coming of age and the self-insert together, then you tie the Oscar bait with the last stand because you have like your emotional moment. Then you can maybe combine the anti-hero with the smart black girl trope, and then you can have the rotating and rotating protagonists. And what if you rotate the protagonist as the
Okay.
anti-hero?
So you got a nerdy. Okay, so you got a smart black nerd girl, or a smart
Yes.
black girl, and she's the anti-hero. Is that what you're saying?
I guess, yeah.
Okay, and then you need rotating protagonists. So who's the
But
other?
like
protagonist?
she can be one of the protagonists, and someone else can be one of the protagonists, and one of the protagonists is the self-insert coming of age.
Okay, so are you the villain? Are you the villain coming of age, and the smart black girl is gonna defeat you?
Well, the anti-hero
And,
is
then you're gonna have an epic last stand where, where the black girl beats you up.
well, I suppose you can have the. Oh god, you just make it seem worse. Well, I was thinking like the anti-heroes, like the more rebellious hero or whatever. It's like they actually kill. Then have we properly established like what makes the difference between a hero and anti-hero in terms of definition?
I don't know. I don't know if we did anything that wasn't a personal version of that. The definition that I saw on if I Google it is an anti-hero is a central character in a story, movie, or drama who lacks conventional heroic attributes. So I would say that a hero and an anti-hero, the difference would be like a code of ethics that is different based on social acceptance of the audience. You know, and someone's hero could be another person's anti-hero. But I don't think that there are any anti-heroes that are noble, bright, lawful good. You know what I'm saying?
You know, I'm actually kind of liking the idea of rotating the protagonist, so you rotate between the villain and the hero being protagonists.
Yeah,
I
that's why
suppose maybe. Okay,
that's why I was saying Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima are such a perfect example of that.
Do we do the self-insert coming of age anti-hero, or do we keep the smart black girl as the anti-hero?
Well, I was liking the idea of just doing 3, but now that we have like what 1, 2, 3,
Because my idea is to
6,
try and
this is
tie them all
7.
together as much as possible.
I don't know. It's your this one's yours because I did the last one, so I'll help you with it, but you gotta run the ball down the field.
Do we do power of friendship?
No, don't add any more. You have to come up with it.
Okay.
No, don't
fine.
add any more. You can't just.
All right,
add,
so
eventually you'll just add all the tropes together and it won't even.
it's just going to be an entire story.
The goal is to do it with
tropes.
as little as possible, so that you can.
All right. Okay.
You can just. It's to prove how easy it is for anybody to come up with a story, just based on tropes.
Insert. What if it's a self-insert? Then I suppose it has to be like a
What would your self-insert could be anything that you want it to represent. So what would make it a self-insert for you? Like what to do that?
Well, like a self-insert, I thought like that's supposed to like is it inserting the audience or is it inserting the author?
It doesn't have to insult anybody. It just has to be. Did you say insult or insert?
Insert, self-insert. Is it self-inserting the author or is it self-inserting the audience?
I think that's the author. I think they mean by that.
All right, so then if
you have
it's
to
going to be a
determine what that
self-insert of
means.
me, then I suppose it has to be a country kind of
A simulacrum of yourself has to be put in there. So you
So,
have to, but that
country-
has to be a reason.
lad, young, like 20s. What else?
Well, I'm just,
I suppose it's
the way that I would answer that would have to do with what the story is, because like you can be a self-insert character and it doesn't have to necessarily
Well,
be exactly you. It can just
What
be
would-
your personality. You know what I mean?
Okay, so we need some kind of like conflict action genre because it's the epic last stand. So like, do we do it in like military, or like is it just more of a last stand of smugglers, or like more of a criminal?
Okay, go on.
I can't bloody spell criminal. So like a criminal, like last stand, or is it? What is the idea? Do you think we should go for the last stand? If we're like saying it's military, or if it's smugglers, like as kind of like crime families going on, then it changes the context of the situation, because there are many types of last stands you can have.
Well, that's what I'm saying though. It's like it has to be an epic last stand, so it could be anything. It just has to be epic. It just has to have impact somehow.
I'm going to say military, because I suppose you can have this like the small band against like the big military 500 style. So
your self-insert. Okay, so your self-insert character is
I guess
is
joins the military.
okay. And your
I guess
protagonist
you
too.
got What's he called when
or
you
are you the
fought in this?
anti-hero, or is the smart black girl the anti-hero?
I guess the smart black girl's the anti-hero. So what would the so like rotating protagonists between the two?
The author is the protagonist and the audience is the antagonist. That's a really interesting idea, but I think the audience is not defined, whereas the author is extremely defined. You know, that's
Well, I
part of the
suppose if you're
reason-
making an audience, then you want to have it like to be the everyman so that they can self-insert.
Well, one of
Like
the great
it's
things.
a very there's lots of aspects of a character which is relatable to wider audiences.
This is why I love
like Luke.
cameras. Cameras represent the all-seeing eye of the audience that just watches and judges and never says anything. So like an audience insert would just be something that was just watching, you know? Like imagine if just there was just like the G-Man in Half-Life is like an audience insert character because he's just standing there and you can't interact with him and he can't do anything.
But is romance like Oscar bait, do you think?
Oscar baited romance is only romance. I don't think that romance is ever at the core of the Oscar bait, unless it's the epic that's about like the characters suffering.
So when we look at TV tropes.
So is there? Are you going for the country lad falls for the smart black girl?
No,
She's
I'm
the
trying to think.
anti-hero?
Okay, how
Or
do
are
we
you the
tie in
anti-hero?
the Oscar bait? Because again, we've already established the smart black girl's the anti-hero. That's how we combine the tropes.
Oh, okay, that's how you want to do it. That's
So I guess she's like the more experienced military. Like they could have like a military scientist with the they got like going off the trope of.
So where's the coming of age thing? Is that you coming of age, or is
I
the
guess
smart
that's
black girl
because-
coming of age?
Well, because it's the self-insert.
Okay, but how are you? Why? Okay, self-insert usually is like, I want to be in the thing. So why would you want
Yes.
to be in the thing? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I thought like part of the self-insert was like putting your like aspects of yourself into it so that it could be like a fantasy.
Yeah, but that leads to the Mary Sue thing. But it's like, okay, so if you're inserting yourself, what's the world that you're inserting yourself into? That's what I'm saying. That you're tying this whole story together with. It says
Not entirely sure.
self-insert fic, aka self-insert, is where one where the author has made a simulacrum of themselves, commonly called an avatar in the story's world, as a key character, usually the protagonist, but any other role that's vital to the story qualifies. If the author has any sense of subtlety, the resulting character won't share their name or alias, but it's still easy to tell who that new character is. Two primary varieties. The self as new character, where the author simply opens the top of the story and drops a copy of themselves right in, with a few smiles thrown their way to acknowledge their presence and a few lines chipped in. And the self as existing character, where the author finds himself forced to take over the life and sometimes body of an existing canon character without necessarily being restrained to staying in character for their new role. So you could be the smart black girl.
Not sure how that works though.
Are you saying you can't see yourself as a sassy, smart black girl?
Probably
Anti-hero?
not.
Okay, so here's the thing. Shiney gets forced into the military, and they turn him into a smart black girl. Who's
Oh
a
god, they
military
forced
scientist.
gender and racial reassignment. Where the hell is this
And
going?
and then the Oscar bait comes from you falling in love with yourself.
What?
Because you find out that it's just you're a copy of yourself, but you're actually, it's like Soma, right, or whatever, where the real you're just a copy of Shiny, and then you fall in love with the real Shiny, and that's the Oscar bait romance, because then
Why does it feel
you
like the
sacrifice yourself
romance
for
in
the real
Loki,
Shiny.
where Loki falls in love with a different version of himself?
And the epic last stand is that one of you has to sacrifice for the other to survive.
What is that? Why?
I put all your stuff together.
I don't like how you put it together. Though.
The military turns Shiny into a super smart black girl, and then he falls in
It's
love
like
with himself
the
and has
idea
to
of
sacrifice himself to save himself.
I can't remember what that superhero story was where all the black people just had superpowers. So imagine if you had to change the race of everyone to give them superpowers.
Is that called the Olympics that you watch on TV?
Okay, well, let's just try and stay on track.
No, I think we got that one down. I think we can move on. There's one I want, unless you want to keep going on that one. Did you want to finish it to make it serious?
I guess I want to try and do it seriously to some
Okay,
extent.
keep going. I'm gonna get some more coffee. You keep working it out.
All right, so coming of age story, like what? How is a coming of age story often like better defined story? Coming of age stories tend to emphasize dialogue or internal monologue over actions that are often set in the past. How is that?
Yeah, the black girl's name is Shiney.
Oh
It's
God!
his
Don't
clone.
don't bring this full circle. Don't.
Yes.
I hate it. I was
did
actually thinking, okay, well, let's see what can we do creatively with this list, and then all of a sudden
Okay.
you just
No, you're right. You're right. You're right. Okay, you're taking it seriously. I get it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay.
I don't think I'm
I'm
taking it
just trying to
100%
work-
seriously. I'm just thinking like no, what?
No. I know. I'm trying to work my way into understanding the creative process that you're going through. You're typing it out and working it out, like connecting.
So
the
how do we
pieces.
take the protagonist in like from childhood to adulthood? Because I suppose it is like the perfect
who's-
age with the self-insert.
Who's the protagonist?
Like again, the self-insert country lad in his 20s.
Okay, and so
And then he, like the ice stories,
okay.
he's forced into the military. Then I guess there's a romance with the smart black girl trope with
Right, there's gotta
anti-hero.
be, and they're both the protagonist. They're both rotating protagonists.
Yeah, the
So it has
rotating
to be both.
protagonists.
So then the Oscar bait means there has to be some sort of epic tragedy or drama, overcome conflict that you guys go to get through together, and then you know what I'm saying? That has to be
Yeah.
an epic last stand. No, the smart black girl should have less experience.
So
like-
the idea is that they're super mega uber competent.
See, like, I would think that it would be more like the young girl she's like a military, no, she's not into the military. She's just a scientific genius, and you're the military escort. person
Ah,
that
okay,
has
so
to
like just a
escort her.
scientific genius.
Yeah, and then you guys.
So
you guys
that
don't like
means
each
that we
other.
now have to have some kind of requirement for a scientist in the story.
Well, you're adding we put scientist in there because that seems to be part of the trope. Like we're thinking of
Yeah.
that chick from Black Panther, so let's just keep it. I like that.
But then how do you tie it into the anti-hero?
She's the anti-hero because your character would all be about doing things by the book and honorably.
Okay.
And she would be doing all of the things underhanded. And then you would learn from each other and how to be better people.
All right. So we have
Honorable, upstanding, don't steal from anybody, and she's pickpocketing people, right? She's like, look, I invented a tool to do that.
the scientist that invented a pickpocket tool. No honor.
It's very Rick and Morty.
Fuck.
That's what I was thinking though. It's like, hey Morty, I invented a robot to steal people's shit. Yeah.
That actually does seem like a Rick and Morty episode where Rick just invents a device to steal shit out of people's pockets.
Because they have this steely thing where it's just like, all right, here
Because
we go
I
stealing
was-
things. I'm just gonna.
I was thinking
take
of-
whatever I need.
Like, because there's also things like Stargate, for example. We have Samantha Carter, where she's like the military scientist, and that's the trope of the smart black girl that they are like the super competent one at everything. And that's You
Right.
can even see that in Black Panther, where in Black Panther,
But she's not a Mary Sue.
the 16-year-old. Yeah, well, we don't have them to be Mary Sue. But
Right.
The,
so she would.
the 16-year-old
she would
is like
fuck
the
up.
the
You would have to s-
scientist. She's like just picks up guns and starts beating people up and shooting them all to death.
No, but
So
in
it's-
this one, in our story, she would be like overly she wouldn't be overly competent. She would be overestimating her competence, and then you would be like, "That gun isn't a toy," and then you tear it away from her. You know what I mean? And you'd be like, "If you want to learn how to use it, you'll do it like a soldier or whatever it is." You know what I'm saying? It would be that because you need the dynamic where both characters depend on each other for their weaknesses. That's what good writing would be.
Yeah. Okay. So we got
Rotating protagonists is simple. That just means the story structure is A story on one side, B story on the other side. Then you go separate ways and then you come back together, and then you get the point of view. It'd be actually pretty cool because then you could have, it could be like Casino or whatever, where there could be like inner narration, where you could have your character speaking over your narration, and then she could have her character speaking over narration. Like, I didn't like this uptight British twat, and then you could be like, this dumb bitch or whatever. You know what
I need to
saying?
write that down. Yorkshire British accent. Okay. I actually need to make sure that the 20s on young voice is not going to make sense there. All right, okay. So we got the self-insert country lad, 20 years old, Yorkshire British accent, forced into the military. It's a coming-of-age story. He's got like a very by-the-book personality, like very honourable. And then you've got the smart black girl trope who's an anti-hero who shouldn't have any ethics, but she's a scientific genius. She doesn't have any honor, but she overestimates her competency. There is a rotating between the protagonists and the point of views. And the Oscar bait is the romance and the tragedy, and then the epic last stand is like do you think both get sacrificed for like both sacrifice or just
No,
one
because it's
sacrifice?
Oscar bait. Someone has to survive so that they can cry.
Right. So black girl survives.
Oh, so you do the last stand thing so that
Yes.
she can be genius, and then she dedicates her genius invention to you.
Of course.
This is stupid shit. We're gonna win an Oscar.
Well, that is like the idea of Oscar bait, where it's just really stupid, but it's like, oh look, it's really tragic. We've gotta give it an Oscar. But then, like, what's the antagonistic force? It has to be kind of like something
has
which
to be
would
some sort of
require a scientific genius. So maybe like robots or like alien monsters. Because robots would kind of be like the replicators.
No. That's really.
A
I mean, it doesn't really matter. It could be anything, right?
Org or like replicators,
But like this
something that
isn't enough.
like they require a scientific solution to defeat, or like the alien monsters where it's like their weakness.
But like, I think that we've gotten far enough to be like, people are like, oh yeah, I can see the movie now. You know what I'm saying? Like,
All right.
it could now literally be anything. It could be zombies. It could be the government. Whatever it is, like the conflict now, it's not. I mean, you could keep going and adding more tropes and building it more, but like, it's not a real thing that we're doing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course.
It's
So
like a bit.
we still have like 40 minutes left. So what do you want to do? Do you want to continue this, or do you want to give it a go? So you get
I have
basically.
one I want to do because I was watching chat. So there was one that was Hooker with a Heart of Gold, Incompetent Men, and Blue and Orange Morality. I thought would be pretty funny. But I don't know what
Alright,
Blue
so-
and Orange Morality is. That's the thing. So to Blue and Orange Morality, the entry says, to say that questions of morality are thorny and filled with gray when they aren't being hammered between stark absolutes is putting it mildly. Because of this, there can be great drama when characters who represent a wide range of moral viewpoints come together or into conflict. The strangest of these characters are those who espouse blue and orange morality. These characters have a moral framework that is so utterly alien and foreign to human experience that we can't peg them as good or evil. They are in a chaotic neutral, unfettered, though they may seem to act terrifyingly randomly. Nor are they necessarily a lawful neutral fettered, because our and their understanding of law as a concept may not even be equivalent. There might be a logic behind their actions, it's just that they operate with entirely different sets of values and premises from which to draw their conclusions. It's also worth noting that such cultures are just as likely to be something we find appalling as they are to be something we'd find benign or weird. They may also find us appalling, benign, or weird, even if we don't see them that way. So that's like that reminds me of like I don't know, a character that like just like straight up shoots a
Are
guy
you going to
and then
share screens
justifies
for
it.
like your version, by the way,
Well,
or are you
I'm
going
not
to
gonna
like in a
write it
document?
down. I'm just gonna try and come up with it. So it's
I think
there's
it's probably better if you write it down. That way,
I don't just don't do it like that
it's
though.
visible and it's able to just make sure it's down on paper.
I mean, I don't flesh out the idea. I just sit there and think about it. The only thing that you need to know is hooker with a heart of gold, incompetent men, and blue and orange morality.
Is that it?
Damn. Well, yeah, I'm saying that's 3 of them. I mean, I can add more to them if I want to flesh it out.
No, I
but
mean, like,
like
how are you going to like? That was the idea of what we've been doing for the last
Oh.
while. That you okay? How you've got these tropes, and then how are you going to make them like work
Well,
with
so
each other?
you have the idea. Well, you just it's like you're forced to use these elements, and then everything else you can put in whatever you want. You know, I think it's actually harder if you had a bunch of them to put together into it. So like, a hooker with a heart of gold teams up with an incompetent man and tries to teach him how to do something, and and the way that they go about it would be, she would be like forcing him
What?
to like
She's
rob her
teaching him to be a hooker.
no, she's teaching him how to be a man based on all of her past crazy experiences with weird men, right? So like she's taking him to meet her clients or something so that he can learn how to be a man. She's like it's like Fight Club, but instead of it being Tyler Durden, it's a hooker with a heart of gold. It's like some incel autist is roommates with a hooker that's got an OnlyFans, and she's trying to teach him how to get a woman that he's madly in love with.
Is
So
this
she has
also
to-
a self-insert character?
Oh, totally, totally. But it's a self-insert character because you're writing it. No, I don't know. I could probably add more to that, but I think that's probably enough. You could just.
So what do we
you
do
know,
now? What's the?
you could just keep coming up with them if you want to, or you could switch to something else.
I think we could probably just switch to something else now because I can't think of anything else to do.
It's too bad that there's no random, like, if you just went to... Oh, there is a random button. It says random tropes. So, oh, wow, we didn't even need to do any of this. I don't even use TV tropes. That's the problem. So if I just hit the TV trope button, random trope button a bunch of times, we could just put together stuff based on the random trope button.
Oh, that could be interesting.
Okay, so if I hit it, okay, once...
All right, I'll
You can
open
write
up
it
the
down.
document again. All right,
Okay.
I'll write them down.
The first one is girliness upgrade.
Girliness
Are-
upgrade.
So it's a tomboy that becomes a girly girl. So that's one of the things that we need.
Upgrade. Was it tomboy, which becomes a girly girl? Okay, and then
Yeah.
what else? The trope. Bring 'em
Heaven
out.
above. The sky is equated with things pertaining to the divine, whether it be the Lord, the gods, the fate, or the afterlife. Nearly any supernatural concept can be brought to mind by mentioning the heavens, holding one's hands together and looking upwards, or showing clouds flying across a starry sky. So that's the next one.
Could you repeat that, or maybe put it into some...
Heaven above.
Yeah, heaven above. And what's the description?
Well, it just has to do with heaven. Anything that
Okay,
has to
just
do with heaven.
just something to do with heaven. Okay.
It can do.
Andrew
it can
Clark
do with,
for $2 very quickly. Glib failure to launch. Hookers of a heart of gold. And Inquisitor Fire says that's not an upgrade. That's a downgrade.
failure to launch plus hooker with the heart. Yeah, I mean it's like Pretty Woman but in reverse. Let's see. What the third one is: murder by remote control vehicle.
Murder.
Insane.
Murder.
This is. See, I don't know if you're enjoying
remote
this.
control.
I like this idea, Shiny, because I like the idea of just. It's like what we're doing is we're not sitting down to design a Colt 1911 pistol, a fantastic pistol that'll last 150 years in usage or whatever. We're sitting here making Borderlands 2 weapons, with like randomizers. That's what it's not meant to be taken seriously, and I think that the audience will love it because I bet every idea we come up with will already be an anime. So the fourth one is repeat to confirm. Troper describe the repeat to repeating an order back to the one that gives it. One confirms that the order
repeat to concern
to confirm.
Yeah, okay.
By
Repeat
repeating
to
an
confirm.
order back to the one that gives it, one confirms that the order has been correctly received and understood, so any mistakes in communication can be fixed before the order is executed. It also impresses bystanders with the speaker's professionalism and steadiness under stressful conditions.
Okay.
And then the fifth one is cut apart. Alice thinks she's found the house where Bob is. She walks up and rings the doorbell. Bob looks up as the doorbell rings. Alice waits for a moment, then rings again. Bob gets up and goes to open the door. He opens it. Alice looks up as the door opens and is face to face with some old lady. She's at the wrong place. Bob finds Chris on the porch waiting for him as a dramatic sting hits. The cut apart is a subversion of the continuity ending that the audience is used to seeing. We're led to believe we're seeing the same event from two perspectives. Then the reveal shot shows that it's two separate events that may be miles apart. So what is it? What do we have again? We have girliness upgrade, heaven above, murder by remote control vehicle, repeat to confirm, and a cut apart.
That's thing is,
And Alex Halo says we have to add a giant robot in there. So let's add a giant robot in there just for fun.
okay, so the thing is, 3 of these are kind of like only specific moments rather than tropes, which to do with the entire story.
That's the thing is you're thinking of a story as a movie or a book. Like it could be 5 minutes, you know what I'm saying? It could be 2 seconds. It could just be a guy walking into a building. The only goal that you and I are trying to get to is beginning, middle, and end. We just have to make sure that we have that. So,
right. So I guess the girliness upgrade is going to be the protagonist, I suppose, or is that going to be like a love interest?
do you want to start with? We don't have to start. What do you want to start with? How do you want to start the story? Because it could be different depending on what note we start on.
I don't know, because I'm not entirely sure how we're going to combine a tomboy becomes a girly girl with murder with remote control vehicle and giant robots. Because I think you can combine giant robots, remote control vehicle. These two concepts you can very easily combine. Like, we've already combined two tropes.
Do you really think that there's a limitation?
I think there is.
I think we are the only limitation.
Because there's you need to put things together in a way that works. Because obviously, as any concept with the right writer can be brought to life, but you need to be able to bring it to life in the right way. And when you're trying to do that, you have to think, okay, how can we make this work? How can you make a story about a tomboy becomes a girly girl with heaven above, repeat to confirm, cut apart, giant robots, and murder with a giant remote control vehicle?
I think we can do it. I totally think we can do it. So,
I think there's not. I think we can't do it. It's that I think I'm trying to think of how it can be done.
Is the giant robot the murder weapon?
That's what I was thinking. Because my first reaction to a lot of this is like, okay, what can we connect like Lego?
So basically, like, just from what we have there, I can imagine a giant robot is sent to go and kill a girl, and when she goes to heaven, she becomes a girly girl, which she really wants to be.
Okay.
And then there's a
giant
to confirm.
Remote control robot.
No, see, I don't think that should be it. I'm saying that's how you could do it from that perspective. I think it should be the tomboy becomes a girly girl, and her rival gets into a giant robot to try and kill her, right? But the girl was given the girliness upgrade by heaven, right? And so just when you think the giant robot is gonna kill, and it's like a repeat to confirm because the jealous girl is talking to the robot. Just before that's about to happen, we get a cut apart, and we see that she didn't blow up the girly girl. She did something else.
Okay. Sorry, just very quickly. $2
Demon
from
Horn
Jackson.
says, what
I
if the-
came. I
Go on,
came
go on,
late.
go on.
What are you doing? So we're just trying to make concepts for stories based upon randomly generated tropes.
Just
That's
random.
what we're.
We're trying
Yeah,
to put
completely
together,
random. We tried with the ones we were picking. Like off
think
of
this is how
Discord,
the-
and now
I
we're going
think this
random.
is-
And I think random is actually pretty funny.
I think this is how anime gets made. I think manga, they just hit random on the trope thing and then just put it together.
Oh, Proton Stalker. Mentioned a good one. A tomboy. Sorry,
That's beautiful.
a tomboy mechanic type. That's how you. Yeah, so tomboy.
A tom girl mechanic becomes a girly girl and leaves behind her giant robot who tries to kill her out of jealousy.
Leaves
That's
behind
brilliant.
a
love
robot who leaves behind a giant remote control robot who tries, because it needs to do murder now. What's it gonna murder?
Oh, here's
Who
how we do it.
murders-
He tries the robot tries to kill her boyfriend that she became a girly girl for, and that's the cut apart moment where the robot accidentally
tries
murders
to-
the girly girl and ends up in
Tries
heaven.
to murder the boyfriend.
or the mechanic is gonna go. The robot is gonna kill the boyfriend and attacks the building where they think the boyfriend is at, but actually they're at the church getting married, and that's the heaven above intervention, because the robot thinks that they're in another place, but they're actually at the church. That's how they get rescued by religion, because they're getting
They
married.
are, but they are getting married. I'll put behind it a giant, jealous, remote control robot who tries to murder the boyfriend and attack the building thinks they are, but they're actually getting married in a church.
What if-
This
what if
really
the-
does sound
What
like
if
an
she
anime.
made? What if she made the robot as like her fake lover, like a Pygmalion? No, what is it?
Oh god,
Is
a
it Pygmalion?
fake.
Yeah, it's like
It's
a
like a
lover
fake
bot.
boyfriend.
Yeah, and then the
Robot
robot
boyfriend.
becomes sentient and jealous.
A giant boyfriend.
it.
A giant jealous boyfriend remote control robot tries to murder the real boyfriend. Giant jealous remote control robot becomes sentient and tries to murder the real boyfriend and attacks the building thinks they are, but they're actually getting married in a church.
This is so fucking good.
Oh, it's so random and completely
This is
bizarre.
this is awesome, because I'm starting to see the movie. This totally seems like some progressive Disney Pixar movie. Tomboy mechanic becomes a girly girl who leaves behind a giant jealous boyfriend remote control robot that becomes sentient and tries to murder the real boyfriend, attacks the building they think they're in, but they're actually getting married at the church. And maybe at the cutaway moment, that could be the moment, like when the robot destroys something that they created for the girl or whatever. They have like a coming to God moment. Or maybe they destroy something and then they have like a religious moment, something like that. It could
Destroy
totally
something
work.
and then makes a religious moment.
Don't date robots.
It's like the robosexuals in Futurama.
That's
What's
the name
next?
of the. That's the
Gay
name of the movie.
robosexual marriage?
That's the name of the movie. Is Robosexual.
Robos.
It's perfect. See, this is what I'm saying is like this bit is just infinite possibility because it's
Yeah,
built on
I'm quite
randomness.
enjoying this. We'll have to do this again sometime. So, what should we name the first one if we are naming the first one?
Oh yeah, what is the first one?
Um, love and uh, death.
No, that's too.
No.
That's too.
Uh, guns. Because like we've got the romance aspect. Love and sacrifice. I'm terrible with names.
Mm.
Disney Pixar's Robosexual. Atreya asked, does the robot fight for droid rights?
Absolutely no.
I'm so low. Okay. Love and duty. Okay,
Love
how about
and
that?
duty.
I think that works.
We gotta get Proton Stalker on it next time, and he can help us out.
Okay,
you
so
want to do one more after this?
Okay, let's do one more. I'll get onto the next page. Here we go.
Okay.
Right, let's generate 5 or 6 more tropes.
How many? Do you want to do 6?
Yeah, let's do 6. I actually find that the more the better because you've got to try and make this complex way of intertwining them all.
Let's do 7 of them.
Yeah, because we've got like 20 minutes left. Let's do 7.
Okay. Dull eyes of unhappiness. That's the first one I got.
Wait, dull eyes
Dull
of...
eyes of... Yeah.
Okay, so what's this?
Normally, happy people's eyes shine and reflect their environment. This is because the coating of tears over the exposed eye to keep it from drying out reflects light sources within a certain distance. In anime and manga, though, when a character is feeling very sad and very tired, depressed, or about to snap, their eyes lose all the natural shine and have the appearance of being lifeless.
So, how do I write that down? So it's like just should just leave it like that.
Happiness. It's like 1,000-yard stare.
Okay, I guess they're just unhappy.
Oh, okay, this is a subtrope. Let me go back up to the higher one. Reflectionless, useless eyes. Dull eyes of unhappiness. Empty eyes. So like dead behind the eyes, I guess, is really what it is.
Okay, so empty eyes / dead behind the eyes. Okay.
Okay.
We can make that work. Okay, next one.
The next one is untrusting community.
Community.
A hero walking the earth comes to a community, often an adventure town, that bears no welcome for them. They insult or otherwise mistreat the hero and consider them suspicious and worthless, no matter what the hero says.
Okay, unwelcoming to the hero. Actually, that's like a pretty common trope in a lot of
Spider-Man
media. Everything from Avatar to Star Trek. It's even used in like Stargate to some extent, where they come and say, "Hey, look, the planet's going to be hit by asteroids." We're like, no, we don't believe in asteroids because we're backwoods savages. we haven't invented the telescope.
All right. Next
All right,
one.
okay, let's we need more.
Oh, this is cool. Kitchen sink included. Every time someone refers to the expression everything but the kitchen sink in any way, shape, or fashion, an actual literal kitchen sink will inevitably appear. Sometimes the saying is not even mentioned. Showing a kitchen sink in a context where the saying could be used works as a visual pun by itself. This trope is almost always played for laughs, especially in cartoons.
Okay, played for laughs.
So we have to have a literal kitchen sink.
Yes, we could have a literal kitchen sink.
This is getting very Douglas Adams.
All right. What else?
So that's 3. So the fourth one is walking spoiler. Oh, damn it. A character or thing who has most of the tropes underneath it as spoilers. This is going to be insane.
A character or thing which has
most of the tropes underneath it as spoilers. Mentioning anything about this character thing at all, worst case scenario, this includes name or even its existence alone, will often reveal spoilers about the work they feature in, which predictably makes talking about it difficult. Some fans reconcile this by using euphemisms, others by avoiding talking about it at all, others just by placing a warning that the following will contain massive spoilers.
I don't.
Shit. I don't even know how this is going to work.
I don't know how that's gonna work either. Okay, let's try two more.
2 more? Okay, so
Yeah.
5 is fake guest star. What? This is... I feel like I'm getting
Why are
trolled
we
right
getting
now.
the most bizarre ones?
Oh, this is testing even anime's most ridiculous.
Donald Trump.
An actor who is,
How about that?
to all outward observation, a member of the regular cast but who still receives guest billing. This usually has something to do with their contract and whether or not it stipulates that they
But
receive main cast billing. Though in some cases it may be done as a gimmick to call attention to an actor whose reputation vastly exceeds that of the rest of the cast.
Okay, so a fake guest star, guest billing. Sorry, what am I spilling? Building, guest billing, but is treated as a regular cast. Okay.
They're a regular cast member, but they get treated like a guest star.
Oh, so they get a regular cast member treated as a guest star.
Yeah, like they just add guest star. So we just have to have guest starring, and then somebody that's just normally in the thing. This is bizarre. Okay,
I'm not sure how you can intertwine that into a story.
we can do it. We have the ability.
That's like a meta thing.
So now we have a walking spoiler, a kitchen sink, and fake guest star. This is gonna be really good. I like it. This
Okay.
is awesome.
So we got 5. We need 6 and 7.
Okay, so 6 is 5-finger discount. The preferred method a street
Stealing.
urchin uses to acquire stuff, since they're too poor to afford it legitimately, is to sneak it out of their mark's
Or-
pocket and or into their own. A rebellious
So-
princess sometimes does this for the sheer thrill of it, or because they honestly believe they don't have to pay for anything. So just a
So-
thief.
Or pickpocketing, thief,
Yeah.
or stealing.
Okay. And
One
the
more.
final trope, drum roll please, is
Okay.
dangerous backswing. A combat move in which a heroic melee fighter taking aim at an opponent in front of him swings a large melee weapon over his head and accidentally, or maybe intentionally, hits an enemy standing behind him. Wow.
Accidentally hits an enemy behind them
Whew.
while swinging a large weapon. My God, this is.
Yeah, that's right, Doug. House, guest starring Hugh Laurie.
We have. Well, we might need more than 15 minutes to put this together.
Okay.
Okay, so
This is actually not that hard, because the response to seeing all this ridiculousness would be the reflectionless, useless eyes. Right? So
Yeah.
there's an untrusting community. So maybe it's like Simpsons or Futurama, where there's like a guy that's just like acting crazy.
all right, so do put the reflectionless eyes with the unwelcoming to the hero.
Holy shit, this is going to be the most meta ridiculous bullshit ever.
Okay.
I liked what Jack said. I wish I could motivate my friend to do this. Just sit together and write stories, but he's fat. He's too fat to sit down. I love that idea.
Oh God.
This sounds like it'll be a classic anime story. It's gonna be. I'm imagining the anime in my head right now. Some regular person.
It's because it's completely bizarre.
Yeah, they're just like stuck in this ridiculous world. I can imagine it. Oh geez. This is hard. This is testing my idea that you can just do it. You can just randomly.
It's testing
pick a
your
bunch of
creative
shit.
limits.
It really
Because
is.
this is like a meta thing. So I'm not sure how you'd have
Like this is a bunch of jokes. Half of this is like an SNL bit, and then the other half of it is an anime. So somebody needs to be stealing something, right?
okay. I guess maybe the protagonist could steal something, and then that makes the community untrustworthy.
Okay, that's okay. Right off the bat, that's obvious. Yeah. Okay. He
Protagonist
stole everything,
steals
including the kitchen sink.
something which protagonist steals everything, including the kitchen sinks, which
And then
makes
there's a guy that's a walking spoiler that says, "Hey, this guy's gonna steal everything, even me." And then he gets stolen by the guy.
walking spoiler who tells the community what's that's everything.
No, there's another guy that's the walking spoiler.
That's what I'm saying. There's
Right,
another
right.
guy.
Okay, yeah.
The walking spoiler tells the community everything is
That he's gonna
Going-
do. Yeah.
going to like past tense or current tense.
No, he's going to. Like he's like he came to my village and he just stole everything, including the kitchen sink. And they're like, not
Walking
even the kitchen sink.
Spoiler
He's like,
tells the community everything. It's gonna tells the community the protagonist is going to steal everything. I feel this is like a D&D skit from Door Monster. Like they had the one where the traders, like the protagonist just kind of sold me a bunch of useless crap and bought all my good items, and now I'm completely broke.
This is getting really good though, because now I'm thinking that you could take it and the protagonist, that's the walking spoiler, that's
Okay.
like, there's a guy that's gonna come to town. He came from my town and he stole everything. And the guy
Okay,
that's
walking
the
spoiler
walking,
tells the protagonist is going to steal everything. The protagonist steals everything, which makes the community
No. The
trusting.
community doesn't trust the protagonist because the walking spoiler tells them not to trust him.
Doesn't trust the protagonist. Okay. So we got that one. I'll just remove it once we've got it. Kitchen sink, we've done that now. Walking spoiler, we got that. Could the fake guest be
The fake guest star is the guy,
the walking spoiler?
or he could be the guy that defeats the walking spoiler with the dangerous backswing. Because I thought it would be funny if the walking spoiler tells the community the protagonist is going to steal everything, and he's talking about himself. And then the fake guest star is the guy that comes in, and he's just like not paying attention, and his dangerous backswing somehow defeats the walking spoiler.
Isn't and defeats walking spoiler with a backswing of a large weapon.
Well, it doesn't have to be it can be metaphorical too. But this is as just trope wise, this is starting to make more sense.
All right, 5% discount. All right, so now it's just how do we transition from the untrusting community to everything being stolen, and how do we include the reflectionless dead eyes?
Oh, and the useless eyes and dead things is what happens when the fake guest star inadvertently kills or defeats the walking spoiler. That's the reaction.
Reaction to the defeat is brief.
Everyone in the movie is a guest star.
Yes,
That's good, Logan.
Eyes.
Guest starring Shiney. Guest starring Glib. It's the Shiney and Glib show with special guests Shiney and Glib. Spoilers, starring Shiney and Glib. Guest starring.
While this is happening, the protagonist steals everything, including the kitchen sink.
Yeah, exactly.
Then what's the conclusion? How do we end the story?
Well, the backswing has to be the end of the story. He like inadvertently somehow captures the.
Yeah, but then how does the protagonist steal everything while the community is untrustworthy? Because I was thinking
so maybe the walking spoiler tells the community that the special guest star is going to be the one that does the stealing. And so the untrusting community is all paying attention to the special guest star.
Okay.
Meanwhile, the walking spoiler is stealing everything. Or maybe
The walking spoiler tells the community that the special guest star is going to steal everything, but the community doesn't trust the fake guest star. The fake guest star doesn't pay attention, defeats the walking spoiler with a backswing of a large weapon. The reaction is just steadily its eyes. While this is happening, the protagonist steals everything in the kitchen sink. Happy with that?
It's not very
We've got
clear, but I do have a blurry idea of the story. So a guy comes to town and says, this next guy that comes after me came from my town and he stole everything. And his name is Robert De Niro or whatever. The special guest star, Shiney or whatever. And then the special guest star comes in and everybody doesn't trust him. And they're all like, oh, this guy's the guy that he's talking about. Meanwhile, the walking spoiler guy is stealing everything, including a visual gag of the kitchen sink. Then the special guest star comes into town and inadvertently unravels all of the plots of the walking spoiler guy, who telegraphs what's about to happen to him. And then there's some sort of it doesn't have to literally be the backswing of an axe, but unintentionally he does something that causes the stealing. Unintentionally, he defeats the walking spoiler and then walks away with all of the goods anyway. So he does rob the town, but maybe he doesn't even know that he's robbing the town, thus proving that the walking spoiler was right to begin with.
Right? We're happy with that?
Or we could, here, bring it back around. It's like the good, the bad, and the ugly. The walking spoiler comes to town, and he's in on it with the fake guest star. And he's like, you guys need to watch this guy. He's going to steal everything. And then it turns out that the guy that's the special guest star is just there to distract everybody because his buddy, the walking spoiler, is stealing everything.
That could work.
And then at the end, the walking spoiler is trying to get away with the gold, and inadvertently, the special guest star accidentally kills him.
Well, I think we've got a story there.
I think we did it.
We somehow managed to do it with some of the most bizarre tropes that we could be thrown at us.
So
And
it's like
we currently only got 6 minutes left, so
it's like Tuco and Blondie going into town. One of them is a guy that says, "Look, everybody, this guy's I don't have proof, but he's a robber. He's gonna steal from you." Everybody then is super hyper vigilant. Meanwhile, he's stealing from everybody. And as they're about to leave together, inadvertently, the guy knocks out the other guy. That sounds like a bit. That sounds like a comedy bit. Okay. All right. Well, I know we only have so many minutes left to do this, but we should definitely do one or two or whatever amount of these. This should be like a thing that we do.
Mm-hmm. Well, we can do this in
really
the
fun
future.
I like the idea about. I like the idea of getting like Critical Drinker or somebody to come and do this with us. You know, somebody who's like a professional writer to flex their creativity or something, or a comedian or something. It would be really fun to just sit there with the random button and keep hitting it and keep coming up with stories.
Yeah, I think we can make this work as a staple of the podcast.
Perfect. That's a good thing. That and talking about behind the scenes stuff. I think we should also talk about in the future. I'll be a little bit more oriented where we talk about stuff that we've recently been looking at that's influenced our work. Would be interesting. And then also,
Yeah, I think we can always talk about like what we've seen recently, or like what we talk about, because this podcast is all about the mechanics of media. And one thing I did want to do is like bring Locha on to talk about Unreal Engine as a cinematic tool.
Cool. If you want to do this another time, that's like before Sunday, just let me know. You know what I mean? If you want to, and we don't have to do too much.
Well, we can always invite people like Southpaw on if we want, or even Smurd or Literature Devil if Literature Devil's able to come on.
I know that Southpaw loves tropes. I would love to just do this thing with him. I'd love to do this with Smud Boy. One of these with Literature Devil would be fun. I just know that riff. I love to do this kind of stuff because I do this by myself. You know what I mean? Like I come up
Hmm.
with an idea and I go, does this work as a story idea and to
It
plug into
feels
my story?
like complete ad lib stories.
But it's so funny how when you take, to me it's like you take flour, you take water, and then you take butter and you take an egg and you put it all together and somehow that becomes bread when you put the effort into it. You just have to mash it all together a little bit. But you'll find out, you know what I mean? You'll get something out of it because it takes shape once you put it in the oven. So like I genuinely feel like you could just take anything and shape it down. If you have enough content, then you can sculpt a story out of it. I feel like it doesn't even matter, and I think that that's proof of it. It's just about how you want to think about it, how you reduce it.
Right. So I didn't want to answer this right in the middle of what we're having our big laugh, but CJ Great wanted to. I have explained this multiple times on Twitter, Discord, and even live streams. I think even to you, CJ, in the past. The reason why I'm no longer part of the Smudcast is for a few reasons. One, it Smud was always pushing for like nightly Smudcasts, and when I was also doing morning nonsense, it was like a lot of my day was streaming, and that was taking a lot
Yeah.
out of me, and I just wasn't able to do it. Another reason was that in the old days of the Smudcast, when it was just like a few group of friends, was it like Voice, me, LitDev, Smud, Glib, um, and we had that repart going. It was a lot of fun to hang out. But as Smud kept pushing for the daily streams, that ended up making it more difficult for a lot of people to join because we couldn't always be there. And because of that, Smud ended up finding new people. And the new people, they're that's fine. I don't have any issue with them, but I didn't have the same repart with them as I would with Glib or Voice or LitDev. So it wasn't as enjoyable. I really get along with Hawk and a few others, but it just wasn't the same.
I
And
just like
I
bantering with
didn't
them.
appear anymore, so I just like officially left the Smudcast, um, and that was it really. I don't have any issue with Smud, but we're still good friends. We talk every now and again. I don't have any problems at all. It's more just morning nonsense, things I needed to do, time mixed in with wasn't really. Oh, in the videos as well were always very repetitive. So morning nonsense is a bit more free and open to like talk. It's basically just people hanging out, doing whatever. It could be responding to a video. It could be just cocking about. It could just be a discussion, and it's very free and open. And morning nonsense is more of a group of friends compared to Smudcast, where it was always replying to the most dumbest videos Smud could find, and it was always the same bad takes rather than just finding new and interesting videos to cover, which we can have more conversations about. And a repart is banter back and forth, like a good. Is there a word you can think of
What?
for repart? Like a conversation,
Rapport?
like a good connection, rapport. That's it.
Is that what you
Yeah,
mean? Okay.
that's. I think that's what I was trying to say. I think I've explained it well enough. I hope that explains why I'm no longer on the Smudcast.
Chemistry.
Yeah, chemistry. That's it.
Look, I show up when I can. That's all.
All right, so this is the end of the Shiny and Glib Show episode 5. Should we include episode 4 because you weren't there?
I don't care. We can
Well,
do whatever.
it's no longer public anyway because
Okay.
it got
It's no,
took down.
no, it's not. Hawk doesn't count. I'm gonna smack him when I see him, on the ass. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, that was good. Let's do more of that. We'll get more people on. We'll do our thing. Sounds good to me.
All right. So see you guys later.